Yours? No, Camden. Nope. I'll get it. I think Colin's first, right? So,
Like that, we started.
okay. This is off.
Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our regular council meeting of Tuesday, October the 10th. I hope that everyone enjoyed the Thanksgiving long weekend. Not that it's about me, but it's personally my favorite holiday in the year. It's just food, family, and friends. So it's a great season for that. And I'm grateful to be here with all of you, all of my council colleagues, members of our staff, and members of the community. Thank you for being with us tonight. I do wish to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered here together on the territories of the Tsao-Kanichiana Nations. And we're going to move right into the agenda. Sorry for a bit of the delay start, particularly those online that are following along with us. But council, I'd like to turn your attention to the agenda and looking for approval with the inclusion of the supplementals. Moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Beddoes. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. And so that takes us to item 4, which is right into our public hearing. And so I will open the public hearing. This will be for 4.1 and 4.2. The one that follows is a variance, so it's a bit different. Yes, in the microphone.
Just wondering if I missed the territorial acknowledgement.
I just said that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But that's okay. All right. So this public hearing is being held pursuant to the Local Government Act. At this public hearing, any person who believes that their interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaw will be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the bylaw that are the subject of this hearing. Copies of written submissions received to date are available. It is important that all who speak at this hearing restrict their remarks to matters contained in the bylaw, and it is my responsibility as chair of this hearing to ensure that all remarks are so restricted. For those of you who wish to speak at the appropriate time, please commence your address to council by clearly stating your name and local government of residence. Then you may give us the benefit of your views concerning the proposed bylaw. Submissions must be received before or during the public hearing in order to be considered by council. Members of council may, if they so wish, ask questions of you following your presentation or submission. However, the main function of council members this evening is to listen to the view of the public. It is not the function of council at this public hearing to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw with individual citizens. Everyone who deems their interest in property to be affected shall be given the opportunity to be heard at this hearing. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making their views known. Please note that this hearing forms part of tonight's regular meeting of council and as such is being video recorded. Videos and their contents, including any personal information disclosed during the public hearing, will be posted on the district website. So we'd like to begin tonight with item 4.1, and that would be for 5629 Croydon Place. So I'll turn it over to staff, please, for your report.
Thank you. The subject property is approximately 6,100 square meters, and as a corner property, it has 2 road frontages, being Croydon Place to the north and Laidlaw Road to the west. Am Creek Regional Park Preserve is adjacent to the property across from Laidlaw Road. Souk Basin, specifically Cooper's Cove, adjoins the property to the south, and the property contains a single-family dwelling as well as a detached small suite and another accessory building. The applicant has proposed to subdivide the property into 2 lots from the original parent property. Their intention is to keep the existing primary dwelling on the property as the dwelling for lot 1 and the small suite on the property as the primary dwelling for lot 2. Small suite would have to be converted to a principal dwelling by way of a change of use permit through the district's building permit process. Property could not be further subdivided until this proposed zoning received the proper zoning, which is before you tonight. Proposed zoning amendment aligns with the objectives of the Gateway residential designation. The applicant has applied to rezone to RU5, where the minimum lot size is 2,500 square meters. The new lot proposed will provide low density infill while preserving the rural character of the surrounding neighborhood, with no substantial changes to the property being proposed. The property is not within the sewer specified area, and the applicant will be responsible to ensure that on-site septic systems are current and suitable for the lots they were serving. No changes to the site are proposed, and the applicant's requesting relief from constructing Laidlaw Road and Croydon Place. The variances, if they're to be granted in future, would support policies related to environmental protection by maintaining Laidlaw Road in its natural state to where it extends south to the basin and foreshore. The proposed subdivision would result in 2 lots that are each larger than the minimum lot sizes, encouraged within the Gateway residential land use policy area. The applicant, as part of the rezoning process, by way of covenant, is proposing to contribute $5,000 per new additional lot being created, which would go towards this Affordable Housing Reserve Fund. And this is in line with past contributions provided to the district. As a condition of the rezoning, staff requested that the existing trail be extended from the end of Croydon Place to the shoreline to uphold the policy within the community growth area objectives tied to providing pedestrian connections to capitalize on recreational opportunities, as well as what's been provided for within the Parks and Trails Master Plan. As the applicant does not wish to construct Laidlaw Road, no driveway access to Lot 2 will be constructed. As a result, an access easement will be required to be registered on the proposed Lot 1 to give access to proposed Lot 2. And this would be a requirement through the subdivision approval process. So with that, staff are in support of proceeding with 3rd reading of the zoning bylaw amendment. And with that, I'll conclude my presentation and turn it back over to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. Before I turn to members of the public, I'd like to ask if council has any questions of staff. Okay, so I'll go to members of the public that would like to speak on this particular item. This is specific to 4.1 for the zoning amendment for 5529 Croydon Place. You could please come forward, and if you could please turn on the microphone and introduce yourself so we can all hear you. Thank you.
Do you have a slide? No. My apologies. There was also a slideshow presented by the applicant.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. My name is Rachel Sansom. I'm just here tonight on behalf of the owners of 5529 Croydon, and I don't believe they're here this evening. They were under the weather. Otherwise, they were looking forward to this. So I'll be brief because I believe the planner did touch on all of the points that I'll probably make here, but it's nice to kind of address you directly and certainly answer any questions you might have. They're pointing at the right thing. There we go. Ooh. Yeah, it's a little stretch here. So there's a view of the property from Croydon Place. You're looking down the driveway that will be the easement over Lot 2 in favor of Lot 1. And you can see the Quonset hut there. That is the secondary dwelling that's currently on the property. And oh, did I go backwards? Okay, sorry. We can't. It's first time doing this here. So, and this is a view for those that aren't familiar with Croydon Place. It's a nice rural road with limited amenities, but it has a lovely country feel to it. There's our proposed subdivision as noted. You can see the outlines of the existing buildings that'll each lie on their own separate lots. They're serviced by in-ground septic, and we do have approval from Island Health for those now. Covered by CRD water and fire protection. Again, our access by easement and the existing structures remaining. And we did get a permit for that secondary dwelling, so that has a final occupancy permit that was obtained this year. The notification, the signage is installed, and the owners have discussed this application with several of their neighbors. And this is wrong, excuse this slide. A lot of these things that were in the previous draft development agreement that you would have seen back in September are actually things that staff can request anyway in accordance with your bylaws. But there is the agreement to pay the $5,000 for affordable housing, which is rather generous, really. I think it exceeds the average per lot affordable housing contribution. And certainly that trail improvement that they agreed to do will be a nice asset to the neighborhood and the community. Right now, it's not very well defined and clear where it is. And then, of course, the Laidlaw Road extension. So the applicant did hire a biologist to evaluate the ecosystems in and around Laidlaw and found that there were some riparian areas nearby and therefore unsuitable for creation into a road, which isn't really needed for anything because it doesn't go to any area where you could dock a boat or actually make use of it. So the CRD Parks actually recommended that it remain in its natural state. Therefore, we'll be coming forward with the variance to not have to improve that. Otherwise, you would be required to do that as part of the subdivision process. So there you can see the riparian area, and I believe that's included in the environmental biologist report that you have in your packages. And I'm here for any questions you might have. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you very much for being here in the presentation. Questions from members of council? No, I think we're good. Thank you. Maybe we'll call you back if members of the public have questions that we can't answer. Are there members of the public that would like to speak on this particular item? Any call for a second time? Third and final time? This is your only chance to speak on this particular item. 5529 Croydon. Not seen anyone interested in speaking. So on that note, which is fine. We don't always have people speaking. I'll close. We'll move on to the next one. Correct? If I'm not seeing this right, because after we close the hearing, that's when council will deliberate. So once we start putting motions on the floor, you can't ask questions because we're in the public hearings closed and we're making decisions and it's solely on the motion at that time. So you're all good? Okay. We'll move on to the next one, which is 4.2 for the zoning amendment bylaw number 888-600-97-2023 for 2072, 2076, 2080 Camden Place. So I'll turn that over to staff, please.
Thank you. This is for this is a Bearland Strata lot that was created on Camden Place. It's approximately 1,813 square meters. Camden Place was subdivided from the property of 6484 College Road and was created as a mid-size lot Bearland Strata subdivision in 2020. The R2 designation of the property permitted the construction of duplexes as they are listed as uses within that zone. Ownership of the property changed between the subdivision of the property to create this Bearland Strata and the construction of the dwellings. The applicants are permitted to build duplexes, however, they are unable to create the 6 titled lots under the current strata configuration. So currently what exists are 3 duplexes, 3 strata lots, and the additional unit for each lot would then be available through rental ownership. The objective here is to dissolve the strata and create 6 individual lots for private ownership. Purpose of the application is to amend from medium lot residential R2 to medium density multifamily 2, which is the RM2 zone. Rezoning will allow the applicant to make that application to dissolve the current Bearland Strata subdivision and create a building strata multifamily development for those 6 townhouse units. With no physical changes being proposed to the units that have been constructed, this zoning change will facilitate the ability for the owner to sell 6 individual units rather than 3 titled units with an additional attached rental unit. Subject property is located within the sewer specified area and is designated as community residential in the district's official community plan. And the designation promotes the following goals and policies. And that primarily looks at the infill development opportunities where available, consistent with a single family and multifamily type dwelling developments. While there's no overall increase in density on the site, the rezoning will facilitate the ability for the owner to sell each of the units individually. While the uses on College Road are primarily single family dwellings, the size of the lots in proximity to a bus route in the town center makes redevelopment of the area into higher density developments such as townhouses and smaller lot subdivisions an attractive proposal. It's anticipated that surrounding single family residential properties will rezone and increase the overall density of this area. The proposal aligns with the goals, objectives, and applicable policies within the official community plan around providing additional housing where services are established. So with that, staff are recommending to proceed with third reading for the rezoning from R2 to RM2. With that, I'll conclude my portion of the presentation and turn it back to the chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you again, Mr. Powell. Questions for staff? Go ahead, Councillor Bateman.
Okay, thanks for that presentation. In our supplemental agenda tonight, we have some concerns around the setback. Have you had a chance to read this correspondence and any of your comments, please?
Yes, I've had a chance to review the supplemental information that was submitted. And previously, the Building Safety Division consulted with both property owners, one of them being the applicant, the other one being the adjacent property owner regarding retaining wall structures. And the Building Safety Division at that time determined that the matter was civil in nature because a building permit was not required for the retaining wall. So that if there was any concerns, the Building Division had instructed the applicant to be in contact with the property owner to help try and address any of the questions that they may have had. But at that point, it was a civil matter between those two property owners.
So no formal variance was required in this case.
The only changes were through a covenant amendment for the fire's underwriter survey for setbacks, which was already accepted through an engineering report provided by Westbrook.
Now I'm curious, under the RM2 zoning, which the applicant is seeking tonight, there's a requirement for 8% of the property to be designated as an amenity area. Does this property meet that requirement?
Yes, the applicant provided, I believe it may be in the public hearing package as one of the conceptual drawings. They had shown where parking, the amenity area for 8% could be established. And that's all contained as common property because by dissolving a bare land strata, currently what's there is just the driveway as common property and the rest of the property are the 3 individual strata lots. By dissolving, now only the buildings themselves become the strata titles and the remainder of that property becomes one large common property area with the physical components being the driveway, the landscaping, making up those various components for access and amenity space.
Okay, and here's one. I look back to our council meeting of July 22nd, 2019, and this was prior to subdivision of this property. The district needed to determine parkland dedication, and we came up with $18,000. This being based on a land value of $363,000. Now I've looked at BC assessment today. The land value today, as of January 1st this year, is $1 million. So I'm wondering, is some kind of recalibration of the parkland dedication possible, or is that strictly to be done at another stage in this process?
Typically, when you take the any form of dedication or contributions for the overall parcel, that would be the time where that contribution has been provided. And so in this instance, there aren't additional lots being created. It's just the dissolving of the original title and reconfiguration of that. So I would not see any further net increase requiring that. And also as part of the process, which is important for consideration, is that this, you'll be familiar with the residential strata conversion policy that we have. Because these structures have not been lived in, they do not require that municipal approval process. They can go directly through land titles to create that configuration. If there were individuals occupying these structures, this would then need to come forward through another process to convert those buildings into what is being asked for by the applicant. So they are trying to do this with the least amount of requirements necessary and not need to go through that additional process for municipal approvals.
Okay.
Thank you. Other questions for staff? Anyone? No? Okay, so I'd like to open up the microphone to members of the public that would like to speak on this particular item. So this is 4.2 Camden Place specifically. Okay, yeah, please come up. Everyone will have an opportunity to be heard, so. Same thing, if you wouldn't mind, please turning on the microphone, introduce yourself. That'd be great.
Hi, yes, Patrick Wood, resident of Langford, but part of the group that developed these town or duplexes at this point. And we just prepared a small presentation, but also wanted to be here to answer any questions that council might have or to help with any questions the community might have. So essentially our goal is to take 3 dwelling units.
Could we get your name? Sorry.
Patrick Wood.
Okay, you did
Yeah.
say that.
Yeah, no problem. So right now, completed construction last November, ran into these zoning issues. And we would like to sell 6 individual units so that we can have more affordable housing, have things that CMHC qualified that people can move into and live in the community. As it stands now, we'd probably have to sell each of the 3 units to someone who may live in one and be an investor for the, like have a rental unit, or may just treat them as investment rentals. What we'd like to do is actually sell them to people who want to live within Souk. We included some pictures in our presentation, which, so there's an aerial there. We finished these to a very high standard because we built them as if we would like to live in them. We didn't just go as cheap as possible, as we've seen some other developers do. I live in Langford and I drive by some of the development up there, and I have to shake my head when I see some of the finishes and the walls that aren't straight. So we really strive to not do that and to create housing for people who want to live in Souk. Right now, an investor would have to come in and buy each of the individual units and pay north of $1.7 million, which is out of the reach for almost everyone right now, given interest rates and economic climate. If we can get individual PIDs, then we can sell them as duplexes and get families moved in. They're 4-bedroom units, and they're designed essentially to be lived in and have a family there. So that's why we're here, to kind of hopefully get this over the line. What we have there is legally allowed by the zoning as of now. We could sell them, we could rent them, but we'd prefer to be able to move families in and help them qualify under the CMHC $1 million threshold. We won't be at $1 million. We won't even be at 900,000. So that was our goal. That's what we're here for. It's unfortunately taken an extra year due to some oversight in the group on when they were sold as strata duplex lots, not actually being strata duplex lots. So we're here to trying to do it the right way. And we just appreciate all the help from planning and your willingness to have us here. So that's as it looks from above. There's our addresses, and it's just essentially most of the planning thing just put back in. So we would really just hope that we can get council support to get this done. And then site plan as planning has showed as well. And then just explaining that we're not asking for any additional, building space. We're not asking for additional units. What's constructed is legally allowed as per the current zoning. We would just like to be able to sell it to more people that can be part of the community. There's the conceptual plan. You can see in the middle, the question about the amenity space and area. That's going to be, that's the common area. So there's parking there. Grass for people, kids or people to play on, pretty good dedication. And then we also put parking behind there as well. And then just kind of talking about what I covered already, more affordable housing options. These are 6 units that are ready to go. Once we get this done, we will have them on the market the day everything's approved and people can move in immediately. We'd really like to get people moved in immediately. And yeah, it's the CMHC thing. I mean, we haven't had any luck convincing CMHC to help people out by increasing their limits. So, $1 million house is a lot of house. These aren't that. These are more affordable and kind of match what's being built in the neighborhood. We're over 2,000 feet a unit. So we've added sprinklers for life safety, all of that kind of stuff as required by zoning. And then I think the final has a picture of them there, just kind of showing what we put together. Thankfully, the grass has come back from the summer. Looks like that now again. It was a little dreadful in the summer, but it's back. So yeah, we're just hoping to get support and approval and get this process wrapped up. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I'll see, does council have questions? I think brown is the new cool for summer lawns.
Well, yeah, so to keep it brown while we need the water, right?
Exactly.
Perfect.
Okay, so I'd like to see if other members of the public now would like to come up. Yes, please. And
But I didn't know about the slide thing, so I could email them to people after. Okay. If this is on, it's like, okay. My name's Julie Eckhart and my husband and I live and own 2089 Charters Road that backs onto the Camden Place townhouses. Yes. And okay, so I actually think there are two things that need to be addressed for this zoning change. And that is number one, just the fact of the zoning change, but also to make sure that all the additional parts of the package that were available, that were as available online and requests from different departments were gone through and approved and completed before a vote goes to approve these houses for sale. And I'm just going to go through the different ones that have popped out to me. I have been working with emailing planning and safety since I think let's see, I guess it was late 22, I guess, got emails all to them and also then to the mayor and to the builder and product developer about my concerns as well. Okay, so one of the big concerns, if on page 14 of the packet information here, the hearing information package that was sent out, the plan for the retaining wall would have to be submitted to the city separately for a permit and approved. And I had been asking for that for quite some time and I did not get one because I guess it wasn't available. And it's right at the top of page 14 and it was requested by the DOS. So the Department of Safety, I think that's what that stands for. So that was.
it means District of Souk.
Oh, does it? I
Yeah.
thought it was safety because I was doing the safety department.
Yeah.
Okay,
what you'll
the Department of Souk. Oh, the District of Souk, sorry. Okay, so. Oh, my. Oh, Ben, usually I'm kind of loud, so I'm just trying to keep my voice normal. Okay. Okay, so that was a concern of mine. And on top of that, to make sure that the retaining wall has been inspected by a structural or / geo engineer and an inspection report had been submitted to City Hall. And please note that the building site and the building lot was dug out about 3 feet and leveled out. And I've got photographs of the I'd asked for photographs of what the site looked like before it was approved for initial building, and there doesn't seem to be any available. So I went online and I did find some. So I can email them to the Souk hearing. I have lots of photographs. I just didn't know about the slides, so I could email them to you when I sit down.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
need to receive anything.
Yeah, I know before the
I
GABA
shut-
goes. Yeah,
Yeah, before I shut.
I
the
can
hearing.
talk a lot longer. Yeah. Okay. So there was that. So I have those and it shows quite distinctly the before and the after of what the wall looked like before it was they had started building and after. And this is how I think it's really important that the retaining wall is properly inspected, because if there should be any issues like with the weather as we know, climate change and weather and rain elements are happening. And we've also just been having minor earthquakes again. So we really need to make sure that this is properly done, because right now it's 6 feet 2 at one end and 5 feet at the other. And I've got photographs of all of that all the way along as well for your perusal. But I'm really concerned about that because we have the building goes that at the back there are like a stacked, and I've got photographs, stacked kind of walls going up with earth in them doing the walls. But the one that goes at the corner of our property, which, and as you know, corners are usually the parts that go if there's any issues, it's totally bare. We've just got and I've got photos of that too, just the bricks. So I'm really concerned about it being really properly inspected, because otherwise, and that when you sign off on it, to be very clear about this, because, and this is why I really wanted to make sure it's on the record, because I don't want to be, and my husband doesn't want to be liable for that. Any kind of issues that should happen afterwards. Okay, so that we have that. And then we have the setbacks from buildings to property lines and retaining walls. And also on page 14, and it's by the DOS fire, and they had advised access codes applied to this proposal. So I went, actually I had measured them before and sent them in on an email, but I went this morning and I remeasured the setbacks of each of them to see if anything had changed since I had sent them at the beginning of last spring, I think it was. And they are a lot less than what was put onto, and it's on page 20 of the information package. Page 20, and they have like they show measurements of different parts, and then these are the ones that are the variances. And it's, I wrote, I think you got this in the email today. The distance, and actually my my profession is in product development and also in quality assurance and product control in the fashion industry, and I've done it for 40 years. So I'm really good at measuring. So my measurements are pretty accurate. And the distance, and the one that I'm most concerned about is the one between the retaining wall and the that's at the edge of our property and the building beside it. It's 42 inches, 1.07 meters. I think I have in an email that the request had been for it to be 1.5 meters. I've got a big chains of emails, and I can forward those to you as well. I have been told that the by the builders and the product development, the retail realtor, real estate developer, that the measurement should really come from the building and then go to the property line. And they were claiming that the property line actually owns the retaining wall. I have requested a survey or title to prove that, because we brought the home and it closed in February of 2022. And according to my survey, it looks like we have the retaining wall. So if there is another survey, I would like to see it, so that we can actually, I don't want to go to court. I think it's better that it's just handled in here. So that is, and then on the other side, which really doesn't actually pertain to us personally, but the house that is the showroom, which is the very first townhouse that you come in. And if you look on page 20, you'll see that, and it is said to be, the setback is, I forget what they say on the thing, but the actual setback from the building to the fence is 21 inches. which is 0.5 meters. So it's not 1.5 meters by any stretch of the imagination. And when you try to walk down there, it will be very difficult. And I don't know, you wouldn't get a gurney down there. And I was wondering if the fire department and the EMS had actually had a chance to look at that. And that's the only entrance to the back garden. I mean, if the fire department was to have to go in, they would have to go into the property behind it. And it looks like that one in the small little space on their side and do the fire hoses there. And for the one with the retaining wall from the building to the retaining wall that's at the end of our property, I don't know if a fire chief would send down a fireman down there because there's no way to get out. And that's the only entrance to that back garden as well. I don't know if any of you have been down there to have a look, but it's actually quite scary. And the backyard of the one with the retaining wall back is the back wall is higher than down below. And I went this morning to go and try and measure to see how high it was. And they have large step gardens going up. Like, I don't know how you get in. Like, it really would need to be inspected. It's so I'm really concerned about safety. And they would have to go through over the gate, the fence of the other one as well. So I would really think of delaying the vote because I think a lot needs to be looked into properly.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll ask staff.
And I'll email you the photos.
Okay, yep, you can jump onto our guest Wi-Fi and it
Do it.
should be able to. pull
And do you
that
have
for
a password or something, or is that secret?
Not on the guest
Okay.
Wi-Fi. No, it should just
Okay.
connect through.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Council at
Council@souk.ca is our general email, and then I'll forward it to our staff. I'll ask Mr. Paolo if you could answer some of those questions. Can someone just turn off the microphone, please?
So in addition to the conceptual plan provided at the end of the package, which shows how the 6 proposed lots would be configured with the amenity area and the existing driveway. As part of the occupancy process through the building permit, a process that went through for the 3 duplexes, an occupancy certificate was issued after the district received a licensed survey or a survey plan from a licensed surveyor. So when it comes to the property closest to Gollage, the separation distance from the building to the property line is 1.22 meters. And that's consistent with the fire underwriter survey requirement to make sure that it would meet those fire requirements. To the north property line, strata lot 1, that separation distance from the building to the property line is 4.63 meters at its shortest distance, 4.66 meters at its largest distance, and then meeting also the side yard requirements, east and west. On the east side, 1.79 meters, on the west side, 1.35 meters. So through the zoning bylaw requirement plan check, those met the necessary setback requirements.
Okay, but this is materials that our staff have received. So this was the survey document you received here. And that's where, when those come through, they're from an outside entity, like that's what they do, right? So I can't second guess a survey document that's provided and vetted by our staff. Okay, but our staff have a job to do that they do well, and that is to receive the applications and to follow what is received, like for us to second guess what is provided to our staff. I'm sorry. We'll do first time speakers first, and then we'll go for others. And so I'm not debating this. I'm just going with what our staff have and part of their work that they do. Are there other members of the public that would like to speak on this rezoning? Yes, you may, of course. Okay, just please take a seat and speak into the microphone because we are recording the meeting and others would like to know what's.
It's Mark Mahar at same address as my beloved Miss Julie. Our real question is what kind of engineering survey has been conducted on said retaining wall, the western retaining wall, to which we're well aware it was an original 3-foot differential in gradient. The builder changed it. They excavated an additional 3 feet, to which, in all honesty, pretty much undermines the existing wall. We're talking about a 6-foot wall now. That's the issue. We've submitted much documentation to City Hall. We've been discussing the matter at length for the last, 6-7 months? And that's really what we want. The insult to injury, if I may be so bold, we've tried to retain stationary engineering geo firm to come down and take a look. We were prepared to pay. In both cases, they were more than happy to accommodate, come down and take a look. But within a week, if not 2, they declined. They had other issues or other obligations. We haven't even been able to retain our own engineering assessment by said professional engineering firm, 2 of which I believe they're both located out of Victoria. Maybe you can suggest someone we could hire to have an independent look, because really all we're asking for is an opinion as to what existed and what exists now. What was, what is. We went from a 3-foot retaining wall to a 6-foot wall. The footing is showing of the back of our property. There was a 3-foot foundation built below that 3-foot retaining wall. That's 6 feet of concrete and the footing is showing. Now, I don't know any engineering firm that would think that that's kind of okay. But in the meantime, that's truly what we're asking, is a professional engineering firm to come down and have a clinical look and give us a God honest opinion. Because for no other reason, that wall was designed to do one specific thing. It was designed to be a 3-foot retaining wall with the gradient behind it. That has been physically removed by said builder. And we don't have any documentation dictating that, well, that's kind of okay. It's nothing. We need desperately a professional engineering company to come in and look at this clinically. Seismic it's not just weather conditions, it's seismic concerns. We live in a sensitive area. I can tell you right now, I can look at the wall as a 3-footer and say it's okay. But now that it's a 6-foot wall, it's not okay. Apparently, I own the wall, and I can tell you it has been physically undermined. And I don't have any documentation saying that it was okay for the builder to go in with bulldozers and remove that backfill, that gradient. That's all I really wanted to share.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, bless you. Thank you.
Staff, can you comment on the retaining wall, please?
Staff had previously advised both parties to communicate with each other and to provide the necessary information to each other, because at this time it was deemed to be a civil matter. If this file does not move forward, my understanding is this matter still exists. So given that it still continues on as a civil matter, occupancies have been granted for these structures. So these can be lived in. What council is considering tonight is only third reading for the rezoning aspect so that the legal configuration of these titles can change from 3 to 6. So the other matters that exist have been communicated from our building safety as a civil matter, and we continue to have those parties encouraged to engage in conversation to remedy that matter. I would caution the district getting further involved until it's been brought to light that there's other issues that the district would be party to. But at this time, we understand it to be a civil matter because building permits were not required for those retaining walls.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Paolo. Are there others that would like to speak on this? I'll go for first-time speakers, please.
Hello, council. My name is Danushka Dezoisa. I'm part of the development group. We have been in touch with them, and they've been kind of back and forth with the planning department as well. So as Mr. Paolo said, this is a civil matter. This is not something that is to be addressed by council, from my understanding. Nonetheless, Coast Geotechnical did come and inspect the property and gave us the requisite approval that we needed in order to proceed. So we're satisfied with that. And if our neighbors may also confirm, but did you attend the property to make these measurements?
Yeah.
Where you want our property to do these measurements? Okay, thank you. I don't have anything else to say. They're well-appointed units. There's a goal here.
Sorry, I can't hear the speaker if we're all speaking at the same
Yeah.
time. Go ahead, please.
There's a goal here ultimately to bring quality affordable housing to the district. We've had an uphill battle. Your colleagues have helped us to deal with the uphill nature of this, and we've come now to the finish line, and we'd very much like to get these properties on market. Again, the height of the retaining wall doesn't require the permitting that she's talking about. And again, we have the requisite approval from the geotech, so we can provide that. Also, it's their wall, if I'm not mistaken, right? So.
You need to,
Yeah, that's really all I have to say. at this
okay,
point. Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah.
I'll call for first-time speakers first, please. Are there any other first-time speakers? Okay, now we can go for a second-time speaker. We're sure, but it's specific on what's in front of us. You'll need to come to the microphone and turn it on, please. And if you could reintroduce
So-
yourself.
Mark Mahar again. So I'm under the assumption that the building permits issued to said builder, the builder has met all the conditions. The footprint is KO, sewer, hydro, construction code, everything's been met. Is that more or less correct? That's the impression I'm under, if I may?
Occupancy has been granted for the structure, so
It
that means
has.
that
So
Are you
in view of the
satisfied?
fact that this particular wall that we're calling into question, if, how do I put this? It appears to be a hazard, like it looks dangerous. It's not designed to do what we're asking of it now, what the builder is doing. So, okay, the point I'm trying to make. So the builder took it upon himself to excavate an additional 3 feet below grade. We're now at 6 feet. And that is a civil issue between us and the builder.
Well, what is in front of us
Now,
here
what I'm
today?
trying to
No, I'm
understand is-
speaking now.
Fair enough.
The intent of this public hearing is to convert this strata. So right
Sure.
now, should council choose not to do this or to deny it, the units would sell as they are.
Mhm.
The 3 units with accessory suites. In this regard, what we are deliberating over today is the strata piece to sever. Well, as
Okay.
indicated, now I'm getting confused, but is to create 6 individual titled lots that
And
can go
I
on the
think,
market,
if
3
I may, that is a
duplexes.
very fair request on behalf of the builder. Absolutely. No one's contesting that part of the program.
But council here is not deliberating on a retaining wall. And so as
I
indicated
was
by
under
our
the
staff,
impression
as
by the
indicated,
submission, we we were mailed that it was imperative that the builder meet criteria to get certification for occupancy, as it were.
And what I'm hearing from my staff or the district staff is that their criteria has been met and occupancy has been granted, and that's why
Okay.
we're here tonight.
So as far as the builder dropping the gradient from 3 feet to 6 feet, we have no documentation that that was okay, or that was, I mean, dropping the gradient, the actual elevation of the property is somewhat of a pretty serious,
Without speaking on this item in
Situation.
particular, but generally in Souk, we have retaining walls and topography challenges throughout our community, and we have seen drop
oh yeah.
in
and
that and retaining walls throughout our community.
3 foot is legally.
There's a 9-foot retaining wall at the end of my property.
3 foot walls, to the best of my knowledge, can be installed without permit. But anything above and beyond 3 feet, you need an engineering certificate.
What I heard from the applicant is that they had a geotech review that. That is what he just stated in this room just before you.
Apparently. So we haven't double checked it. We were not able to retain an engineering firm to go over the findings. Because they're called into question. As far as I'm concerned. Oh, we're gonna count it now? Okay, so it's fair to be said, it still remains a civil matter between the builder and said homeowner.
That is what I've heard from our staff. It's a civil matter, and if property
So they-
lines, dispute,
so
fences and the
In
like.
view of the
survey
fact that
lines.
we may in fact be having this civil altercation, whatever, they have the go-ahead to sell these places. You know, once they get the approval from city council, subdivide, go ahead, you got your 6 units. They can actually sell these units and people can move in. In view of the fact that could be a critical issue with the said wall.
I'm here prepared to deal with what is in our zone, in our public hearing package here, in terms of the civil differences, like that
Okay.
is not
Okay.
what we're
No, no,
discussing
and
here
I-
tonight.
I-
I understand that from our staff that it's a civil matter at this point. I'm sorry that that's where you're left.
Okay. All right. I guess it's fair to be said, we know where we all stand. So I thank council. Bless you.
Okay, thank you. Are there other speakers who would like to speak on this particular item? I'll share that I don't have an email from the writer or from the person who spoke previously.
Patrick Wood again. Just want to try to put some of the fears, and I'm happy to have a conversation with you after as well, so that we can see if we can figure out a way that everyone's happy. We did hire a geotechnical engineer to come out and make sure that what we had put in, which are not technically retaining walls because they are not over, I believe, 1.4 meters. So they came out, they evaluated all the work we did and said, we're good to go. We have it stamped. It has been sent. I don't know if it was sent to necessarily to planning. It was sent to someone else at the district who was dealing with this issue. I think Stan. I can't find it on my phone right now, but I'm happy to pass that along. From my understanding of the excavation, it was not 3 feet. It was much more minor, and that was just to level the backyard. The walls that were put in are less than 1.1 meters. 1.4 is the cutoff for actually requiring engineering. So we got a geotech because of the concerns that were raised, and they signed off and said everything is good. So just wanted to clarify that. We have that report. We've pulled up on our phones, and we're happy to share it with anyone who would like it. It has been passed over, like I said, to someone at Souk, although I don't know if it was planning or not.
That would probably be to our building and inspection department.
Yeah, I believe it was to stand there. And as your head of planning has said, we received occupancy permits on all 6 units. They've come through, verified everything is to code as expected, as required, and signed off. And they actually gave us 6 legal addresses, even though we technically don't have 6 legal addresses right now. So, but again, happy to share the geotech with anyone who'd like it. Happy to have a conversation after this as well, just to see if we can allay some of your fears.
Okay, thank you, but this conversation isn't happening in this room at the moment. Thank you. Okay, are there any other speakers on this item? I'll call for a second time. And for a third and final time. Okay, so there's no other speakers here. So for both of these items, both 4.1 and 4.2, I'm now going to close the public hearing. And then council will move to item 4.3. So this one here is for the 4.3 is the zoning amendment bylaw number 886 600-95 2023 5529 Croydon Place. Excuse me, sir, like I know that you have an important item to discuss, but if you could take your conversation outside, it would be easier for us to hear presently at the desk here. The staff record or the recommendation is that council give third reading to the bylaw cited as zoning amendment bylaw number 886 600-95 2023. That's moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor McMath. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor St. Pierre? Councillor McMath, any comments? Any comments from any other councillors? Seeing none, all those in favor then? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. And thank you to your representative that was here earlier. Thank you. So, and then our next one up here then is item 4.4. And so that is the zoning amendment bylaw for number 888 600-97 2023 2072 2076 2080 Camden Place. And it is that council give third reading to the bylaw cited as zoning amendment bylaw number 888 600-97 2023. It's moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor McMath. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor St. Pierre?
Very briefly, this is straightforward enough in some ways. We're meant to be providing more affordable by taking 3 very expensive units and translating them to 6 more affordable units. Despite several differences, and I'm very sorry to hear that they're so hard on people. We do need the affordable housing in the community, and we should not be holding that housing hostage for the settlement of civil disputes. So I'm going to move this forward.
Councillor McMath? Any comments from other members of council? Councillor Bateman?
Yes, yeah, thank you. We welcome this new housing to Souk. I mean, it's important to really work on that word affordable, of course. A $700,000 mortgage requires annual income of about $150,000. So it's an interesting word that we need to keep looking at, but thank you.
Other members of council? This is an odd one for staff. It's just given some of the directives handed out by the province. Are we starting to track like 1 unit as 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms? Like, do we have a way of doing that somewhere? I'm just leery that we might be noted in the next 6 by the next list by the province, and we could demonstrate we provided X number of units with these criteria to date.
We currently don't have that tracking set up in our Tempest database system. It would be at this time a manual search through the issued permits for residential dwellings.
But you could search for it if you needed it. You could find it still.
We could, well, it would require a plan review for each building permit being
Okay.
issued. Yeah.
Fair enough. Just thought I'd ask. Thank you. Okay, that was off topic, but I'm just curious given recent announcements. Okay, all those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to 4.5, which is the development variance permit PLN 01731 for 2302 Phillips Road. Over to staff, please.
Right. I don't have a formal presentation prepared for this one. It's pretty straightforward, and it's really before council based on a technicality. So typically in these situations, the property would be adjacent to another residential property, and the accessory building setback to a side yard would be 1.5 meters. In this instance, because it is adjacent to our park system with a trail, it's considered as a flanking lot, and therefore the setback is a much larger distance requirement. So in this instance, the applicant has determined that they'd like to have the structure sited at 1.6 meters. So in comparison to what would be the standard side yard setback of 1.5, it does exceed that in comparison. However, it is a flanking lot line, therefore a variance is required in order to construct this as currently proposed. Otherwise, all other setback requirements for the property are sufficient with the zoning regulations.
Okay, thank you. Is there questions from members of council for staff? No? Okay,
Yeah, I took a drive-by today and that you've done a drive-by, I take it, you've been on site.
Yes, that's a common road that when going up to Sun River, passing it,
Right.
it's seen, yes.
So Hopkins Court does rise at a good steep level. And I think this house is behind, there's two black fences on the property. There's one down at ground level, parallel to the level with the house, the existing house. And I take it that this second home will be on that level.
it's an accessory building, so
It
it's
is, yeah,
not,
not a second.
it's not a
sorry.
second home. It's the
Yeah,
one
it's
right
a
on
home
Phillips
office.
Road. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right next to the trail, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Other questions from council? Okay, I'll turn to members of the public. This here is a public input portion of the meeting. It's specific for the variance permit for 2302 Phillips Road. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak to this specifically? No. Okay, so we'll move on. It's not a public hearing, it's development variance, so we'll just go back to council. Go ahead, Councillor Pearson.
I move that the council authorize the issuance.
So that's been moved, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor Pearson?
No.
Councillor St. Pierre? Other councillors wish to speak to this? No, I'll call the question then. All in favor? And that's unanimous. Okay, thank you. So that settles all of the first part. We'll move into our minutes now. So I have meeting minutes here for adoption from the special council meeting of June 26, 2023 and June 29, 2023. So look for these minutes to be adopted as circulated by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. Any questions or comments? Nope. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Okay. Number 6 is report of the Chief Administrative Officer. Go ahead, Ms. Gray.
Thank you. Just in the interest of time, I'm trying to get through the agenda tonight. I have nothing further to add and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the report. I'm excited to see about the spooky pumpkin walk coming up soon. So, and anything we can do to amplify, as I know that our staff do, would be great. And as well for all the work related to the benches. Questions for Ms. Gray? Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, so a couple of questions. The septic system maintenance program. So we received that for discussion late at our last meeting. And as I now understand it, that was our one chance to get it through this year. And so we will look at this again next year, should this be determined in our strategic planning process to be a priority.
Correct. I think even, not to overstep, but staff would still make this a priority regardless to do the public education campaign. It is something that is required as our operational certificate for the wastewater treatment plant. So it is something that eventually someone is going to be asking us why we haven't done it yet. So yes, there was a time frame to get this on the CRD agenda for October, and we've missed that window for this year. So just in order to have more time to educate the public and council and provide more information throughout that's staff will regroup and look to have some of those sessions occurring through 2024 and bring this forward to council early, maybe September, early July or September next year.
Excellent, thank you. Couple other questions. Just a quick note, community emission data. Our per capita has declined from 5.1 to 3.9, not 2.9, which would be a great cause for celebration, but just a small point. And the other question I must ask is relates to the church through roundabout process, and maybe through you to Mr. Carter. I made the mistake of going onto a social media site, and people are just, there's a number of people concerned about why this project began in the fall as opposed to in the summer when school was out.
That's
And I
because
think
it's the fish window.
answered this question in the
Yes.
past, but I'd like to hear one more time.
I'll entertain that. It is to observe the fish window, but Mr. Carter.
Sorry, through the chair to Councillor Bateman, the works for the storm have to be constructed within the fish window. Therefore, that's what they're being done or executing right now. In terms of coordination with the schools, we're worked on traffic management plans that are integrated into both projects, the charters and the roundabout, and access and school routes will be accommodated at all times, and the projects are actually being staggered because of that.
Yeah, thank you. It's pretty depressing going on social media occasionally these days because people are not hearing these messages. And yeah, thank you. Thanks for your work.
So I think that's the way social media operates. And so not every resident in Souk uses these. And so when we put our energy into one platform that a percentage of the population meets, we're missing everyone else who doesn't use these particular platforms, or perhaps those that use it in a more engaging, positive way. Sadly, nothing positive ever emerges, particularly from closed and private groups that select who they want in their groups and bounce out those they don't want. So you're biased, receiving biased information. And I think for some, it's just recognizing we cannot build, construct, and keep roads open all the time. It's just not possible to build on a road and drive on it in the same night, given the means. However, if we, I don't even want to say this, if we increased in taxes significantly, I'm sure it would be possible. And crews working all around hours a day and students tunneling underneath the road, it's not possible. So we have to work within the constraints we have and do the best job we can. And although I've tried many times to direct folks to follow our Souk websites and the like, where they get information, some folks choose not to and would rather complain in social media channels that don't really amount to much. But thank you for spending some time in there. I would just caution you not spend too much time in there because you have a lot, we have many other people to serve and be a part of. So on Councillor St. Pierre.
This was just a further question on the septic systems maintenance program. Mostly because groundwater is actually, I know, a concern to the province. I know that our farmers had to register wells and so on and so forth. When groundwater is contaminated by septic systems, it becomes a problem for everybody. Having said that, I don't know why local government is actually being put in a position where health concerns like groundwater contamination should be at our decision. So why is this actually even being thrown at us, where there's huge political blowback from people potentially being terrified of having to spend, $50,000, $100,000 on a septic field that they'd rather think is not a problem. And meanwhile, we've got potential contamination of our basin and who knows what. I'm curious as to whether or not there's any noise from the province or from the CRD in terms of just, this should not be our concern. It's not our concern when kitchens need to be inspected to a certain level, when health concerns are a problem. When there was a pandemic, people wore masks, it wasn't our concern. We don't decide on that stuff. So I don't know why this should be different. If there's pathogens, there's pathogens. It shouldn't be local government that deals with pathogens. Anyway, just really frustrated with that one.
Agreed, and that could be an advocacy item for council.
Yeah, it's a good answer. Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, just to our CAO, just further on that, I would hope when it comes back to us, somebody can give me an idea what an inspection looks like and what a cost is, because we're unable to get that last time. It's at a $50 fee, is it a $500 fee? So I'd like that information when it does come back to us.
For sure. A couple staff members attended information session that said it was very helpful. So they're going to try and either maybe get these people to come out and present, I believe, at some point, or just borrow their information so that we can use that, because apparently they found it very relatable, very easily understood. So definitely we'll
It's
pass that
on, it's
along
on the agenda for the future. Thank you.
for sure.
Thank you very much for your report, Ms. Gray. I'll just share that when I was at the Orange Shirt event or National Truth and Reconciliation event that was here at the Public Library, I did share highlights of some of the work the district was doing specifically, certainly within the last year. The big piece and certainly an asset has been from the South was finding ways to eradicate invasives from the territory. So I just want to acknowledge staff for the work you're doing in the knotweed and in the tributaries in the creek, as well as the broom. And so when I indicated that, I can't remember the tonnage, but it was roughly 20 dump trucks of broom that had been removed in this season alone. Like what that is a very big visual. The cubic meters, it's hard to picture, but we can all picture 20 dump trucks. And so there's obviously more work that needs to be done, but just finding ways for residents to engage and be a part of that. It also makes it makes a difference on many different levels. So thank you for your work and the report as well. So on that note, we'll look for that council receive the report of the Chief Administrative Officer for information. Moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by La Jeunesse. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to public question and comment period. So these are on all items on the agenda, except for those that were within the public hearing. And so when you come forward, please introduce yourself and provide us with your name and where you live, not your address specifically, but the residents or the local, not the residents, the city, municipality, the district that you call home.
Ellen Lure, Souk.
Nice try, Mr. Wallace.
I'm here to.
You actually do need.
William Wallace from Souk. I'm here to talk about a report that's being presented tonight on the fire. I guess the report. I only have 2 minutes. The fire report anyway. It's a 350-page document with 43 recommendations. Big long thing. I tried to get through it, but one thing that caught my eye is that in downtown Souk, we have 3 big properties that are extreme fire hazards. There's people living in them. They're private properties. And my question is, if you own a property and you let it just go wild, is there a bylaw that says you have to maintain your property to a certain standard? These are 3 properties. One is on U6, the other was on Brownsley Boulevard, and the other was Mariners Landing. They're 3 big properties just overgrown with broom, gravels, and people are living in them. There was one fire on the U6 property that was put out by the fire department, but if there had been a wind, it would have been a significant problem. So these are large property. I'm just saying, why can't these owners go in with the brush cutter and eliminate these potential fire hazards right in our downtown? So that's my question. Thank you very much.
Maybe what I'll do is when we hear from all members of the public that want to speak, I'll just see if I can get a brief answer to those, or in that case, we can address it within the report section specifically, which is next up actually. Because I'm sure council will have similar questions, and I know I do. Are there other members of the public that would like to? Okay, there's no other members of the public, so just we'll get to that, Mr. Wallace, very shortly here. So I'm looking to the consent agenda. We're moving from public question and comment, and this here be that item, that item number 8 be adopted by general consent, and this is basically all the correspondence. Councillor St. Pierre is moving it. Okay, and it's being seconded by Councillor Bateman. Okay, Councillor St. Pierre is the mover.
Yes, I was wondering about pulling, we have 2 pieces of correspondence from, on a topic that we're discussing tonight further. The zero carbon step code, Susan Belford and Anna Russell. And I was wondering if those, and Cameron Essler, and I was wondering if those could all be added to the other package, or how does that work? And can we actually because there was some excellent information in some of those.
So you want to pull these, and these would be pulled and they'll come to the next meeting.
Okay.
I was trying to actually somehow hide it in the book for the one that's your stuff.
That would be then a notice of motion that you could write, and then you could note those and pull them all forward. Because we don't have them here to discuss them tonight, so, or your option would be to pull them to the next agenda. That would probably be the easiest way. Okay, so I want to make sure that we have that right. It's items 12.n. Is that right? 12, 14, and 17. Okay, so those will flow to the next agenda. Okay. Counselor Bateman.
Yeah, I'd like to pull number 16, Bell Vista Place from Johnny Wright, and that's for inclusion with the next OCP related agenda, along with the others I pulled over the last number of months.
So you want 16 to go to the OCP?
The next OCP
The next
agenda.
OCP. Okay.
And I'd also like number 38, latest CRD greenhouse gas emission inventory from Keith Elliott for the next council meeting.
Okay. Any other items to be pulled by members of council? Okay, seeing none, then those items then will be discussed in those meetings, and then the remaining would be adopted by general consent. Okay. Isn't quite what I read out, but because what I read out was that we do the consent agenda. So this is actually a bit of an amendment here then. I need an amendment to do this, because what I read out to be first and seconded was that was general consent, right? And so perhaps Councillor Bateman, you could just if we could go back to that other screen, please, an amendment that items 12, 4, and 17 and 38 be to the next meeting. That actually these are the amendments here.
Yes, as said.
Okay, so Councillor Bateman is making this amendment. Councillor St. Pierre is seconding the amendment. Are we clear on what we're doing here? All those in favor of the amendment? And then the amended motion then is that we basically receive and file, and these things go where they're supposed to. Okay, all those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, this brings us into report section 9.1, and the first one up being the community wildfire resilience plan. So I'll turn this over to our staff to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Tate and Council. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about our community wildfire resiliency plan. And I'd like to just start off by saying thanks for the question, Mr. Wallace. We'll probably be addressing that as we go through our report. And I just want to take this opportunity to introduce some of my support here tonight. In the gallery, we have Ashleen Aktarian. You can just wave your hand, Ashleen. She's our Fire Smart coordinator. She worked diligently along with our consultant and created this document. We also have Jason Humphreys, who's our new emergency program manager. A lot of the work Ashleen does will tie into his new role. And we have our associate from Blackwell, Louis Oru. Is that how I say that, Lou? Sorry. And in the cheap seats is Chief Wayne Kennedy. So anyway, thanks for that. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about our community wildfire resiliency plan. The report basically speaks for itself. You've seen what's been going on in the world around us in regards to wildfire and climate change. This plan will assist us as we move forward for emergency program planning, as well as our Fire Smart project. Previously, council supported our resolution April 29th, 2022, in order to continue on the grant funding that we currently get from UBCM. And part of the work to be done with that grant money was to update our community wildfire resiliency plan. So that is what we have tonight. Tonight, Blackwell and Associates consultant will walk you through that plan and hopefully provide you with some insight and the importance of this document as we move through change here in the District of Sooke. I don't have anything else to really add to the report other than the fact that we take advantage of the UBCM grant funding for this program, and the money is well allocated and received, and we thank them for their continued support. If nothing else, I will pass this on to Mr. Oru. Sorry, Oreo. And he can take it away. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. My name is Louis Oreo, professional forester with BA Blackwell and Associates. We are forestry consultants with our head office in North Vancouver. We have 6 associates, 2 of which are on Vancouver Island, one being myself based in Victoria. BA Blackwell is recognized as an industry leader in wildfire mitigation management risk reduction across BC into Alberta, the Yukon. We are guided by our principal, Bruce Blackwell. He himself is a wildfire expert nationally and provincially. The firm has been writing and developing community wildfire protection, now resiliency plans for over 35 years across BC. We were retained by the District of Sauk to develop this plan through their grant funding. I believe plan work started beginning of this year, with the final report just being finished a couple months ago, 2 months ago. So this presentation, if there are any questions, it'd be great if we could hold until the end. This is a very brief synopsis of the wildfire resiliency plan itself, just to kind of give council an idea of what the plan entails, what are the outcomes, and highlight on a couple of the key recommendations. The project phases initially begins with a background review. We try to acquire as many bylaws and plans relevant to the District of Sauk. They could be internal and external, fire bylaws, official community plan, etc. We review these to try to highlight and identify any areas that inherently can increase or allow for risk in terms of wildfire and emergency response. We then go through a process of field work. The field work, we are looking to update fuel types. So it is, the landscape is divided into fuel types based on fuel characteristics, species, density, grass, no grass, etc. That is applied to just public land. And then we take our field work and combine it into GIS desktop-based analyses to develop a wildfire behavior threat, which kind of details the threat to the community. And then we work through recommendations on how to address the risk and threat that we have identified. So through all of that, this plan, we have identified 41 recommendations to help increase wildfire resiliency to the community. You will see up here on the slide a map. The purpose of this map is kind of give a project overview. There are three key things I'm going to try and point out on this map. One is the black outline, we call it polygon. That is the District of Sauk, the administrative boundary. There is a red outline polygon beyond that. Sometimes it crosses in, as you see in the very north end, up the Sauk River. That is called the eligible wildland urban interface. We shorten that to WUI. It's a term I'm going to use fairly often throughout this presentation. The WUI is the study area and focus of the plan. It is based off of structure density within the area of interest. 6 structures per square kilometer or greater will then get a 1 kilometer buffer put off of that. That is the interface area. So for the District of Sauk, the eligible WUI is characterized by the town center, which is, very well developed. And then there is large areas of parkland, both within developed area on the edge, and then a number of fairly remote rural properties and communities as well. This map also denotes property ownership and management. All of the gray area is private property. It is extensive. There is the yellow, which I believe will be the Capital Regional District parks, and then dark green municipal actually Crown Provincial, and the municipal land is a pale green, which is not very visible because there is very little Souk district municipal land within Souk itself. This just gives, this is strictly from Google Earth. It provides an image of sort of the community Souk, as well as the forested edge and beyond. This really highlights two key terms we use within the WUI. There is interface, which is a hard line where the wild land, unmanaged or can be managed through forest practices land, meets the developed community. And there is intermix, that is where homes and structures are embedded within the forest and wildland itself. Souk has both of those very present within it. The bottom spot risk, that really is denoting, we're trying to highlight, although down at the shoreline there, it is heavily developed, wildfire has a way to reach pretty much anywhere within Souk. This will be discussed a little bit further, but it has to do with embers. Within the wildfire scenario, we call them firebrands. They have the ability to travel well over 6 kilometers and can ignite anything that is flammable. So all of our fieldwork and GIS analyses, as I said, they will kind of culminate into what is the wildfire threat rating. This takes into account the fuel types. The fuel types are given a score on risk associated to them each by their fire behavior. Slope, knowing that fire will travel faster uphill and also preheat things uphill more readily. Aspect, south and westerly aspects are warmer and drier compared to north and easterly aspects, as well as predominant fire season winds, which are taken from representative BC Wildfire Service fire weather stations. Not only just winds, but it also accounts for, during the fire season, the winds and the moisture, so the humidity levels as well, which creates initial spread index, how quickly will fire spread within those fire season months. So it takes in a lot of things and gives us this information. Again, the map is showing in gray is the private property. So this analysis is, we are constrained to just the public land. Limited, yes, it does give an idea specifically to the interface edge, the outside of the WUI bubble. The map shows in yellow, which is moderate threat. These are 24% of the accessible area has moderate threat. That is, I guess, areas that can support fast spreading ground fires, surface fires. 2%, less than 2% is extreme or high. Those support intermittent or continuous crown fires if there is crown trees there. If not, those are rapidly spreading surface fires. 20%, 26% was given a low threat. Those are surface fires that likely would not cause significant damage to a structure. It does not mean no threat. 48% was given no threat. Those are water bodies close to structures. There is a lot of water within the wildland urban interface. Yeah, there is, if you have the map and you're able to look at it quite closely, the small areas of extreme and high threat, as the gentleman previously spoke to, are located right within the community itself. This helps us, map helps us kind of strategize where can you direct resources, both what neighborhoods are most at risk, helps plan for fuel treatments where we reduce fire risk within the wildland itself. There is a lot of the private land, I would say, in the northern edge is undeveloped. It's still forested. And with that, the fire risk behavior threat that we have from this map here you can infer that it does extend further into the community than the map does show. What's really important to understand in WUI fire scenarios is that conditions on private land can often result in the fire behavior being much higher than in the forest adjacent if there is low compliance with fire smart vegetation and structure principles. Low compliance with fire smart principles was noted throughout Sooke during our field work. It's important to recognize that the WUI fires, that in WUI fire events, wildland fuels, the trees, the shrubs, the branches are not the only fuel that's available for the fire. Houses, their exterior construction materials, landscaping, vegetation, cars, propane tanks, etc. Anything that's combustible is available fuel to the fire to burn, expand, and continue into the community. It's been found that during extreme wildfire events, that most home destruction has been the result of low intensity surface fire flame exposures, usually ignited by embers, the firebrands. This is taken from studies of Fort McMurray, fires recently in California. These firebrands, as I said, they cross huge amounts of distances. They'll go over fire guards. They will go over rivers. They will accumulate in densities of up to 600 per square meter. They are the size of dinner plates. So they will then ignite anything that they are landing on that is combustible, and they combine to provide fire pathways, allowing spot fires and surface fires to go through vegetation, landscape vegetation, structures, etc. So with that, the intensity and rate of spread of wildland fires beyond the community has not been found to necessarily correspond to loss potential. Example, fire smart homes with low ignitability may survive high intensity fires, whereas highly ignitable homes and vegetation surrounding them may be destroyed during these lower intensity surface fire events. Thus, increasing ignition resistance would reduce the number of homes simultaneously on fire. Extreme wildfire conditions do not necessarily result in a wildland urban interface fire disaster, and it's for this reason that the key to reducing WUI fire structure loss is to reduce structure ignitability. Mitigation responsibility then shifts to property owners. There is still responsibility on the district for land that it manages, but largely managing the land within 30 meters of a structure itself. And the structure has been shown to significantly increase that structure's survivability in a wildfire. Managing does not mean nuking and scorching the earth. It just means making sure that you have appropriate species there and are managing surface fuels, etc. So, I'm on two things. A total of 41 recommendations were made as a result of this plan. They're housed within the 7 Fire Smart disciplines. We'll go through each of the 7 Fire Smart disciplines, and I'm going to highlight only a few of the key important recommendations within those. Within the plan itself, these recommendations include priority, rationales, a time frame to try to complete them within, and success metrics, as well as estimated resources to implement each recommendation. Almost all of them are currently fundable through the UBCM CRI program that funded this plan itself. Education is the first Fire Smart principle. Education is going to be an incredibly useful tool for the district of Sooke, simply because there is so much private property that, as I explained, that private property inherently carries risks on it, and it's important to educate the property owners on those risks and how to mitigate them. We recommend District of Sooke continues to fund a full-time Fire Smart coordinator position for a couple reasons. One, this will maintain capacity, and if it's the same person, then it will be continuity within the program. As well, it's now a requirement to even receive funding from UBCM to move forwards. As well, continue to build up and conduct a Fire Smart public education program. I've really been through the reasons why on that one. The district of Sooke with the Fire Smart Corner, they have been working hard on public education, and we're just recommending that it keeps going and builds from where it already has. There's been some good successes. Legislation and planning. This will speak largely to bylaws. Bylaws, as I said, were reviewed through what we call a wildfire lens to assess where they inadvertently promote conditions that may contribute to fire spread. We recommend that the district update the fire services provision bylaw. This is largely to make it a little less complicated, especially to the public for understanding, which may improve residents' compliance. As well. And I think most importantly, the bylaw should authorize the fire chief to enact open burning bans based on the local fire danger. This would be overriding any provincial ban that may not be in place at that time through BC Wildfire Service. That would be for within the district. Yes, as well. Establish a Fire Smart landscaping bylaw. As I said, the landscaping vegetation is a conduit for wildfire to structures. A bylaw will help manage what vegetation is allowed to be planted where. There is a lot of vegetation that is, for lack of a better word, resistant to fire over others due to density, moisture content. And this can also be, this is a great way to, if a development permit area for wildfire, which I'll talk about next, isn't desirable, this can at least, the bylaw can manage the landscaping vegetation itself. Development considerations. This is where we look at plans as well as the official community plan. We recommend that the district develop a wildfire development permit area. This would be to manage development through a wildfire lens, creating low fire risk communities with defensible space and importantly, safe access and egress. The OCP does not currently have a wildfire DPA. I believe from within the CWRP, we state that currently in Sooke, all proposed developments, land alterations, redevelopments, and subdivisions are subject to a development permit unless specifically exempted. Applicants for a development permit must produce a wildfire hazard assessment for lands only larger than 4 hectares. Lands abutting properties greater than 4 hectares or for properties abutting the municipal boundary. However, this is not considered a robust wildfire development permit area policy. We're recommending one that speaks to ideally old structures within the municipality, but that would be all determined through the development permit process itself. The DPA, they can have as many policies as we could recommend or as few. I would just like to state that the most important in terms of structure surviving a wildfire would be roofing, which is pretty much already done as most asphalt roofs are fire rated. Siding, making sure the siding is non-combustible, and having what's called a non-combustible zone, 1.5 meter zone surrounding the structure. That can be gravel or dirt, just not anything that's vegetation. Why? It goes back to the embers. They will land on the roof, they will hit the sides of the structure and fall down and accumulate. They have a huge amount of heat with them. These are the primary vectors for structures burning down in these extreme wildfire events. Interagency cooperation. The goal of interagency cooperation is to broaden from a single department or agency-based silo approach to a landscape level multi-agency approach. This is, I think, really important for Sooke, considering there is a lot of Capital Regional District parkland within the community. As well, there are First Nations with reservations lands directly within the community as well. As part of the development of this plan, what is called a Community Fire Smart Resiliency Committee was developed. This brings together individuals from and stakeholders from both government, land managers to sit at a round table, allows for discussion of fire smart planning and coordination. We recommend that these meetings are scheduled and that they continue. This is also a requirement for continued funding from UBCM for Fire Smart programs. We recommend that Sooke engage with the Sooke First Nation to update the fire services agreement. The current one is out of date as per the fire department master plan. The new one should be clear and comprehensive and assess current response needs as well as capacity. Cross-training. This largely speaks to cross-training between local, I guess, structure based fire departments and BC Wildfire Service wildland fire departments. As within a wildfire scenario, they will most likely be working together. Also, the fire department will probably be actioning on interface fires before BC Wildfire Service probably arrives. So having adequate training for them is paramount. 4 key recommendations relating to training are that Sooke Fire Department conduct annual training sessions with BC Wildfire Service, as well as annual training with mutual aid partners. We also recommend expanding emergency operations center training for municipal staff, providing it, and maintain or expand wildfire training for Sooke Fire and Rescue. Almost all of the training that is required for municipal and emergency operations and for Sooke Fire Department is all fundable through the UBCM program itself. Specific to emergency planning, we recommend Sooke update the emergency response and business continuity plan. This would be to ID key EOC positions and municipal staff who could fill these roles when needed. Having clearly defined EOC roles and responsibilities are critical for delivering services in an emergency, and the emergency response and business continuity plan should clarify these. Evacuation routes and procedures information should be added, as well as an emergency communications plan. We also recommend completing emergency operations center activation drills annually. Ideally, one specific to wildfire would be conducted in the spring prior to fire season starting. Lastly, number 7 is vegetation management. The goal of vegetation management is to reduce potential wildfire intensity and ember exposure to people, infrastructure, and structures and other values through manipulation of both natural and cultivated vegetation that is within or adjacent to the community. Again, this does not mean removing everything. It just means removing and reducing the risk that is there. We identified a number, I believe 9 opportunities of public land, both Sooke Municipal, CRD, and Crown, for that would be appropriate for fuel treatments. We have identified 4 as high priority, 3 as moderate, and 2 as low. That priority ranking is based on a number of factors that include practicability, risk, adjacency to structures, etc. We recommend that Sooke applies for funding to proceed with detailed assessment and prescription development. That's the first phase. And then after that, you follow through with actually treating these areas. Also, there a number of them are located directly within downtown Souk in the community. These can qualify as and are great opportunities for demonstration projects to the public, the residents there, and that may walk through. One of them has a nice trail that walks right through it to demonstrate what fire smart vegetation management can look like on their property, while also lowering the risk directly within the community there. 3 units, Willow 1, Broom 1, and Hall 1, all ranked as high priority for treatment. A gentleman spoke about these in the downtown area. They are 3 units that are they're municipal land, and they are infill completely with Scotch broom and Himalayan blackberry. We were in contact with the Coastal Fire Service, the head wildfire officer for Coastal, about these units, sent pictures to discuss. They are newer to us, but not unique to Souk. They are all over Southern Vancouver Island. We wanted to confirm, one, was our site-specific wildfire behavior threat and risk accurate? And 2, can these be qualified for fuel treatments? And the answer was yes and yes. They are dense in terms of there's a lot of dead, decadent, stemmy, woody type material within them, which in the summer is very dry. These areas would be incredible vectors for continuing a fire event through the communities. We recommend that they be prioritized. Vegetation management is not just specific to the wildland and these units. It's specific to, as I've been speaking throughout the presentation, to private property. And I think it's important through education that, and there's recommendations in this plan that speak to assisting private property owners with knowing what to do, how to do it, and then providing avenues for increased vegetation disposal. Reducing barriers. So yeah, thank you very much. Again, I'd like to reiterate that this was a very brief synopsis of the plan itself and the recommendations. None of the recommendations in itself will reduce the wildfire risk. It's a suite of tools. Nothing eliminates wildfire risk. We're trying to build communities that are resilient to wildfire in a world that is changing to be much more conducive to wildfire itself. Yeah, and it will be up to Souk and Fire Smart Coordinator to really knowing the community and what has worked best to prioritize and build upon those. So thank you very much, and I'd love to answer any questions if there is time.
Thank you very much for the presentation, as well as for all of the work that went within this report. So I know that there's many recommendations, and we probably do have hours of questions. However, I think part of it is there can be a bit of comfort because our staff will take this and begin actioning some of the items. In fact, some of them are probably already underway as budget deliberations and all that get going, and obviously stay in the course of the work that we're doing. There is more dialogue happening now about what Fire Smart is and how people can do things on their property to make them safer. So there is a lot of that groundwork that's starting, obviously, not a lot. We need to do much more. It's something to consider for capacity. But I'll open it up to members of council for questions you may have on the report. Go ahead, Councillor Bateman.
Thanks for
Share
that
the air, though.
report. 106 page report, not 250.
Including appendices?
Oh, maybe not. I think those were online. Okay. Thank you. So Blackwell and Associates did our current plan, 2013, and here you are in 2023. What has changed dramatically between then and now?
Great question. The staff at Blackwell.
Okay.
No.
Or
There's been significant change, of course, you would all know, in population. And I think on the landscape that manifests itself as subdivision development. The community is pushing hard into, the interface is moving. It's densifying as well. The northern part of the community, that's where a lot of this subdivision is happening, but it's going to be happening everywhere. Continued subdivision can provide can be risk, but if managed properly, can start providing an opportunity to increase the wildfire resiliency. Although the inner community may not be wildfire resilient as it is, if new developments are getting proposed and moving out and out, having something like a development permit area for wildfire in place will start building that resilient edge as it moves out. Renovations that do apply can then start infilling the risk. Other changes really would just be, I think, for the most part, within the funding program itself.
Right.
It is, from what it was in 2013 to now, are uncomparable. There's a massive amount of money available. Even from last year to this year, they keep changing the program on us, which is great. They're adapting and trying to provide as much opportunity for communities, regional districts, First Nations, etc. It's completely changed, and I need to take a couple of days to wrap my head into it. But all of the things that are recommended are still available within that. So it's a 2-year funding program instead of 1, so that there can be continuity with coordinators. And so everyone's not scrambling and having to ask constantly for extensions. But yeah, there's a lot available. I think that really reflects on the risk that everybody is now understanding. And as well as how reactionary we currently still are to a problem that is well ahead of us at the moment.
Okay, thank you for that. Yes, I had a look at the UBCM program guide here, and there's so many opportunities for the district to apply between October 1st and December 31st of next year. Is there a finite amount that any one municipality can receive from this program?
Yes, there is a finite amount. I can't answer for the current funding program that was just started last week. As of last year, it's dependent on the assessed fire risk. It would go up to $200,000 for a municipality. It could be $100,000 or $200,000. I believe Sooke would fall in the $100,000 range. Ash, I don't know if she's allowed to speak right now, but she would have maybe an idea about this year's program and what's available. Might be able to ask her, but it's not less. It's always be more.
Yeah.
Field treatments are expensive, and they recognize that.
So I live around the corner from the Deer Leap Forest, which is your number one on the top of your list of demonstration projects. So when I walk through that forest after this work is being done, what will I encounter?
Is that the one that has a loop trail in it?
Yes.
Okay, good. Then I'm speaking correctly. Right now, what it is a mature overstory of conifer trees. Their lower branches have long ago fallen off. So what we call the crown base height, the height of the branches up top are quite high. They themselves standing there would have very little fire risk. There's no way for fire to move from the ground up to them. What's underneath those is an incredibly dense carpet of hemlock, conifer trees, very dense. They're all touching arms. They're holding hands. Fire can get into there, can start in there, move from a house into the park or embers flying in. It's going to go through that dense understory. If the winds are high enough, the humidity is low enough, temperatures high enough, potential for fire to get up from those lower ones. At the very least, there'll be a very quick moving surface fire. The treatment would be remove those, all the small ones. If there are pockets that are in openings, it could be that you space those out to leave some of that around. There would be no removal of I've only walked through it. So I would not say this is my final professional assessment, but I doubt there would be much recommendation of removing any of the mature overstory trees. It would just be the understory ones.
And one
I'm just
final,
okay, yeah.
mindful of time. I noticed in some of your other plans, you recommend these community chipper days and programs. You haven't in this program or in this report, to my knowledge. Was there a reason for that? That is gives citizens the opportunity to take their woody stems and other yard waste to a depot. Oh, did I miss that? Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah, it's in there. It is funded.
Oh, the 2-week spring cleanup program. I saw that.
So there's funds within the program to hire companies with chippers. You can't buy one through funding, and then that can go through neighborhoods.
Okay, good. Thank you.
There are questions from members of council. Go ahead, Councillor St. Pierre.
Just a very brief question. I was curious about asphalt roofs actually being fireproof. That was not my impression, but could you maybe?
My knowledge is the majority are fire rated A or B, which is acceptable for it is acceptable standard that within wildfire DPAs for ignition resistance.
I want to address the question raised by our resident, Mr. Wallace, in terms of your query. Like, we do have an unsightly premises and objectable situations bylaw that notes in here about owners of property not to cause or permit, like things like refuse and garbage and all of those things, unsanitary conditions, noxious weeds and the like, hedges and so forth on this property. So there is something in place. It's just, I would say that not everyone is adhering to it. So in some cases, we hear of lands that have been cleared and then the slash piles remain. And I know that that's in here as something that needs to be taken care of. It's the next owner's problem, but as we know, those can be lit intentionally in some cases if they have been in the past. And in terms of some of the property owners, there has been communication outward to some about removing the vegetation, doing some cleanup, and some do that and some do not. Some plead ignorance and some say there's other work that they're going to do, and we're kind of waiting, and then it comes back again and again and again. So I appreciate you raising that. It's just not, it's our capacity to always go around and enforce things as well. But if you have any comments on how we can improve on this, that would be helpful.
I believe the ones the gentleman was highlighting are municipal property.
No, these are private owned lands. So these are lands that have been cleared at some point for development. And then either a project starts and stalls and then it sits. And then whenever that happens, the broom just grows and begins to take over. Next property owner comes in, they intend to do this and this. And then of course, the debris, the garbage, it blows and it all picks up. And some landowners have come around and either done work to make sure that people are not trespassing or discarding garbage on the property, and they do a bit of cleanup, and others seemingly don't. And it grows into the concern raised by the member of the public here, and we drive by and we see it, and then it just sits. It becomes a collection of everything. Those are privately held properties.
Yeah, within updating the fire services bylaw, there can be provisions for the fire chief to identify any fire risk on a property and for it to be reduced. It's a recommendation, something we always look at to be within fire services bylaws. And the fire chief can identify that as a fire risk and a significant fire risk. Landsville, another municipality on the other side did call in BC Wildfire Service to look at private property that had been cleared at the slash loads, and BC Wildfire Service then went to the private property owner and said, this is a massive fire risk for the community and you have to deal with it, and they did. So there are avenues, one recommended within this plan.
That's good. Thank you. Other comments or questions from members of council? Go ahead, Councillor Pearson.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. Just a couple of comments and looking at all the recommendations, and I really like the one about, starting the education in elementary schools, and getting people, like drunk driving, smoking, cigarettes, all those things. If we can start those type of education programs, extremely critical. Feels sometimes like, you're doing a presentation to Suka, we have best interest, but it feels like we're going it alone. And that's that downloading from the province, and I get that. So what mechanisms do Blackwell and Associates, what mechanisms do they have of sharing best practices or lessons learned? What went well or what didn't go well in recent events? Like, are we tracking that data to say, what could we have done better, or what did we do that actually worked in some of these communities that I've experienced?
Yeah, largely right now, we have ongoing relationships with a lot of clients, not all. Some take these plans and we do not hear from them again. Others, we help them act on a lot of the recommendations. Through those processes, we really find kind of what works generally, and what doesn't. A lot of work went into this plan from Ashleen, who has been working in the community herself and helped us tailor recommendations to be much more specific to Suk on what has been working and what hasn't. For someone in her position, there is now quite a large community of Fire Smart coordinators. She is a local Fire Smart representative. There's an online network through Fire Smart forums, events. There's a massive community, what would it be now? I can't even, they change the name every year, conference. Last year, I think there were 350 people from across the province and California and Alberta and the Yukon there. And there are huge discussions, panel discussions that go through all of these sorts of things. So there's a lot of ways to kind of, I guess, learn from what have been successes in other communities and not. And especially at that conference, you get a lot of people going, wow, let's try that. We're still in the reactionary phase. We're still trying things. So very few communities have been working longer than 10 years. Very few, very, very few. And there are still many at 0. So yeah, a lot of learning.
Yep. Thank you for that. Those answers. That's great.
Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, very eye-opening. And I think I just want to get a message to our chief and our fire department. Now's the time to act on getting communications out, because I think everybody with Lahaina and all these fires that they've had are very much aware that that could be here. So, I mean, if people are open to change, now is the time to act. So it's your report is timely. And I think I congratulate the fire department for initiating this report, because I think the getting that information out to the public could save us a world of hurt sometime in the future. So thank you for your work.
Hey, thank you, everyone. So I'll look then for a motion then that council receive this report, Community Wildfire Resilience Plan, CWRP, for information, and that council directs staff to use the CWRP recommendations to inform future budget requests. Moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by St. Pierre. Anything further on the motion? No. Okay. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. And thank you to our fire services staff for being here tonight and all the good work that you're doing. Okay. I'll note that a lot of that does go out at markets and the newsletters and the like. So a lot of this information is going out. Put that in the social media black holes. Something worthwhile to discuss. Okay, 9.2, our Parks and Environmental Q3 report. Pleased to welcome our new manager here tonight.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. My name is Emma Taylor. Can you hear me okay?
I'm just checking. Do you have a microphone?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I can't see it. That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'm happy to bring you tonight a quarter three update for the Parks and Environmental Services Department. The report is for information, and I'll try and move through the presentation quickly in the matter of saving time tonight. So some quarter three highlights from July through September. We've completed the gazebo and resurfacing of the dog park, which is a great accomplishment. We've installed and reoriented 26 of the memorial benches at Whiff and Spit. We've received many kudos for that project from members of the public and plaque holders. We've initiated repairs to the accessible walkway and boardwalk at the Rotary Pier, so that work is underway. And with the filling of the manager position, we have a full staff complement, which is great. So we have a manager position, 5 regular full-time staff people, a part-time admin support staff, and some seasonal auxiliary workers. So great crew, glad to be part of it. So a couple of our capital project highlights. You're likely aware of the Little River Pedestrian Crossing and Multi-Use Trail Project. The design work is underway, as well as some preliminary permitting and approvals. So that would be a significant project over the next year, certainly. The other big project is the Ravens Ridge landscaping around the sport box. So that is, we're advancing to final designs there and working with partners such as CPark and the school district to finalize that design and move into construction there. From our park operations and facilities, we've done some work on the boat launch ramp and some seasonal parking. Been working to repair some stairs in the Aranan Estates neighborhood in the west. Continued maintenance of our parks and trails, and especially through the drought season, there's been a lot of effort put into watering our street trees and container plantings, as well as celebrating our national holidays. We had Canada Day and the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. So some more highlights from the environmental services side of things. We issued 3 park use permits over the last quarter for special events that included the music festival in the park adjacent to where we are tonight. Some work with the Friends of Sooke Park Society, partly to do some fire smart education as well as tree planting and invasive removal. So those were successful, and we hope to continue that work. We support the development review process with our planning and subdivision team here, as well as others. It was mentioned earlier, the important work to do knotweed management along the Sooke River. So that is continued, and there's some permitting and approval advancement there, as well as putting in some amenities for the Sooke market. There was a new storage container and seasonal washroom type work put in. So just at a glance, there's about 114 hectares of Sooke owned parks and green spaces in the municipality, with about 20 kilometers of multi-use trail that it does include the boardwalk and other types of trail facilities. We had 63 calls for service over the last quarter and approximately 88 volunteer hours. So I'll break that down a little further for you. So 8% of the parkland in our municipality is district owned, which is much less than the CRD regional parkland, but still a significant amount, as well as the about half of our multi-use trail network is owned by the district. That 20 kilometers. And just a further breakdown of our calls for service received. The most were related to hazardous trees concerns, and those were followed up with an inspection and follow through to resolve any safety concerns. And we also break out calls for service for municipal facilities as well. So you see that at the bottom. So going forward, we'll continue to focus efforts on our large projects, the Little River Crossing and the Ravens Ridge. There is some work to do with the memorial wall at Quimper Park at Whiffen-Spit. Some permitting has kind of stalled that, but we are moving forward in the next quarter, as well as reviewing potential next steps for Whiffen-Spit Park planning. And on our facilities side, initiating an assessment of our staff layout and needs here at the Municipal Hall building. And that's the presentation for you. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Welcome aboard. A bit of a delay there, but thank you for being here with us tonight. And I guess, is it reasonable to say that given in the previous presentation where Ravens Ridge is deemed sort of a priority site, that we would apply Wildfire Smart to the landscaping there?
Certainly the chief and I have already connected about aligning that work.
It may be just helpful just to showcase these are the specimens and what you can plant, and it's just a good way to get that out there on our, when we're sort of showing what we need to do. So thank you. Questions, Councillor St. Pierre, then Pearson.
Thanks for the presentation. I was just curious about John Phillips Memorial, because we did have some discussions in our last term about what sort of uses the community might like to see happening there. And there was talk of master planning. So I was wondering if there was any sort of timeline in terms of actually suggesting that to council or coming forward with any recommendations.
Through your worship, Councillor St. Pierre. So as far as sort of what Emma's presented, we have on our plate right now in terms of advancing anything with JP Memorial Park, we would be waiting for strategic planning to be done and then to reprioritize either some of our existing items or to focus on advancing on JP as well. So at this time, there's no actions on it this quarter.
Okay. Councillor Pearson.
Yes, thank you for your report tonight. Just my question came in based on the last presentation to follow the mayor's statement. So the parks that we have currently, we have a lot of remote parks, like our neighborhood parks. And I could think of one at the top of Henland between Ernan Properties and Henland Avenue, which is it's used a little bit, but it has a lot of really dry fuel, very dry. And my question is, are we doing assessments on those parks or planning on doing assessments for our fire resiliency plan?
Through the chair, we don't currently have a Fire Smart review process for parks, but possibly that's something that Chief can speak to.
So when I was working with the previous parks manager, we had these conversations. However, they never really came to fruition. So now you've seen the CWRP update, and we have a new staff member here that is willing, I shouldn't say it that way, it's not true, that is maybe more open to having these conversations. We will probably move forward and start to sketch out some planning.
Good answer, thank you. And then the last question I had for you, well, I actually had another one, because I see two leaning alder trees over the horseshoe pit down on Whiffen-Spit or on River Road. And actually had a phone call this morning if we're intending on cutting those trees, because they're on our property, they're in the park, and they look like they're leaning pretty close to them. So anyways, I did go down and look and saw them. Permitting.
Councillor Pearson, just on that, your quickest way of dealing with that. And it's the same thing I do is I go onto the district website and I put a service request in. I put it under my name and just say, hey, this has been found. And then you don't have to remember for it tonight. Because let's say, for example, we ran late, we shifted this to another meeting, you might forget. That would just be your best way to do it.
Yeah, and I appreciate that comment. It just popped into my brain today that I was going to do that. The other question I had for you is you mentioned briefly permitting for the Whiffen Spit Memorial. What does that mean? Permitting issue?
Can I answer that? This has been long. This has been a long process. This is to do the memorial wall. There's been designs done and the like. It's archaeological pieces that we're waiting for. And so it was still even getting the washroom installed. There was a long wait to know where we can site things. So maybe I can leave it at that. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Good. Okay, I have Councillor Lajeunesse, then Bateman, then Beddoes.
Yeah, my question, I guess, has been answered. I was going to ask about timelines for the Whiffen Spit Memorial Wall, because that has been going on for quite a while.
So that's fine. I'll just share that I'm getting inundated with people waiting on the province for different permitting and the like. So this is probably similar in that it's waiting for those things to happen. Councillor Bateman.
Councillor Bateman, yes, welcome, Ms. Taylor. You're filling big shoes of Ms. Hooper, and under her watch, this Whiffen Spit master plan was developed, and I think it's now being completed. Will council be seeing that at some point?
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Bateman. So like I alluded to, as far as capacity wise with JP Memorial Park, we currently have the report from the consultants that it was done. We're planning on doing a wholesome review of it over the winter and then bringing it to council for information. Within that plan, there'll be a menu of options and items to either move forward with in the short term or long term. Some of them will be big ticket items, such as sort of the long-term longevity of the spit and what options are there for that. Some of the short-term items, maybe items such as enhancements to the parking lots and increasing the parking level down there. And again, those will be weighed against sort of other high priority projects related to capital infrastructure, wholesomely through budget deliberations. I don't know if we'll have something solid for going into this year, but there are a lot of priorities and a lot of money being spent with the current things that we're working on. But I would hope that sometime in first quarter next year, we'll bring that forward, the plan with some recommendations.
Okay, look forward to that. Thank you.
Councillor Beddoes.
Thank you. This is just a little word to Ms. Taylor. First of all, welcome aboard. But the second thing is, in the 6 years that I've been a councillor, I don't know how many times I've been approached by the public on what a great staff you have in the Parks Department and how dedicated and hardworking they are. So I just want to let you know that you inherited a very good staff, and good luck in the future. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Beddoes. That was well said. Okay, so the recommendation here is that council receive the Parks and Environmental Services Operations Quarter 3 report for July, September 2023 for information. Moved by Councillor McMath, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Any comments, Councillor McMath? St. Pierre, none? Anything? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to try to clip us along here. Okay, 9.3 is fun. No, that wasn't the one I was thinking of. Okay, this is the consent for Capital Regional District bylaw number 4551. So you've probably seen this here. Ms. Gray, do you have anything further to add here to this?
No, I was just going to say, I don't really have anything further to add than what CRD is included in their report. They just forwarded this to us. I wasn't sure if Mayor Tate, if you had something to add based on your insider knowledge from CRD.
I have no insider knowledge at all, only what's publicly available here. So essentially, though, what this is doing is it's increasing the CRD's borrowing capacity. And so this is where, if that is the maximum that they go to, then it would be incur a $26 property tax increase to manage that maximum, should it go there. It's all in the report. Councillor St. Pierre.
I was actually at a CRD meeting that was looking at wrapping up some of the funding for some of their projects that were, through these funding streams. They're actually really excellent. And they're doing projects that are on a much larger scale than Soo can actually take on, and they're actually situated all through the CRD region. It seems like a fairly small ask. On the face of it, it looks like more affordable housing where we don't actually have to do the work and the heavy lifting. So I would favor it, but there you go. If anybody has anything else to add.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lajeunesse.
Well, yeah, I have a question, but I'm not sure who to direct it to.
You direct all questions to the chair.
All right.
And then we'll go from there.
To
the chair.
Yeah, well, it looks like this program has been around since at least 2010. And where, like, it's a land banking fund. Where have they been banking land? Has there been any land purchased in Souk, or where's this money going?
So it depends. So through the regional parks acquisition, I would say there has been several hectares of land acquired in Souk over time. You would need to go to follow the communication or subscribe to what comes out when they announce these things. So there's parcels added to East Souk, there's parcels added to Harborview Park. Maybe the one in East Souk Park is not in our jurisdiction, but there's a few others that are. Souk River Road, or along Souk River would be others. The golf course was a CRD acquisition via Sea Park, for example, for recreational purposes. In terms of land assembly, this is to do large scale attainable housing, as Councillor St. Pierre has indicated, some fully supportive housing. In that regard, we don't have particular projects like that in Souk, but that's also because we don't have the services to service these. Right? So when folks we have some that we've done through the Hope Center, but in some of the others, it's proximity to other larger service providers. So they're not necessarily here. But it doesn't mean that our residents don't access or attend or live in these facilities, in these housing. I couldn't name them all. There's a lot. Councillor Bados.
Yeah, I think this is fairly clear, but the $26 increase only happens if they go to borrow the maximum amount. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
It's just so I think part of this here is to be ready should opportunities arise, that the CRD can move and actually acquire the process without losing it. So sometimes even in Souk, we have lost the opportunity for property to acquire property because our borrowing ability was too tight, too slim. And then it goes on the private market and it disappears. Councillor St. Pierre.
I'd like to move that council consent to the CRD adopting bylaw number 4551, land assembly, housing and land banking service establishment. Bylaw number 1, 2010, amendment bylaw number 2, 2023.
So that's moved. It's seconded by Councillor Bateman. Anything further as the mover?
Just very briefly. No, actually don't.
Okay, Councillor Bateman.
Well, yeah, as I said earlier, the definitions of affordable are pretty fluid, right? So here is an opportunity to quickly act and build truly affordable housing, complex needs housing. There's also in the CRD white paper, interesting, something called a rural housing strategy. And I'm still unclear as whether Souk falls in that category, because in the regional transportation plan, we are defined as a rural hub. So I wonder.
I don't have an answer
No,
for
you
that.
don't.
All I would say is that you could argue if we said our rural, then what is the electoral areas are certainly rural.
Certainly.
And are in require, like Salt Spring had some initiatives get underway there, completely different from a rural perspective than Souk being more rural.
Yeah.
Pender, and the like,
Yeah.
all the way up
Okay.
to Port Renfrew. Okay, so that's been moved and seconded, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, that's unanimous, thank you. Okay, 9.4. CRD animal control contract. This is for a renewal. So I'll just advise council, I don't know exactly when this happened, that at one point council did direct staff to come back to describe what it would look like if we established a service like this on our own, and it was determined not to be in scope, or at that time, certainly something that would be very expensive to deliver and not something we have capacity to do. So I would agree that that still is the case, with all the other demands on service, acquiring land for kennels and veterinarian services and the like. We're not there. The CRD, as far as I know, seems to do quite well with the work they're doing. So this here is it would be a renewal for another 4 years, I guess. Yeah. Questions? No? Okay, so this would be that council authorize the mayor and CAO to enter into an agreement for animal control services with the Capital Regional District for the years 2024 to 2028. Councillor Laz, that's moved by Councillor Beddoes, seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. Any discussion? Councillor Bateman?
I just wanted to throw a few metrics into the mix here because they weren't in the staff report. We paid $104,000 last year in total. That works for all of Souk, $14.62 per average assessed residential property. And there are approximately 2,500 dogs in Souk.
2,500 dogs?
That's what they say.
That's a lot of dogs. Okay. An interesting conversation sometime at UBCM is ask some municipalities, this is kind of mean actually, how their cat control is going and licensing. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, the CRD Transportation Governance Survey. So thank you this came to us at our last meeting, and then staff put forward a bit of a survey for us to participate in. And here we are. So we decided that we were going to do this all individually and then see where they went. I think we had five respondents, 5 council members.
5.5.
5.5.
Somebody did half the survey.
I wonder if that was me. No, I'm sure I did get through it. Okay. So, oh, sorry, just shut it here. I'm just trying to figure out, like, what we're sending in is in some cases, here we are, the consolidated results. I just went to the wrong one, because it would be easy if we had all answered the same way, then we could consolidate those and X. But if we go to the one where it has it consolidated, so in question 1, like we're split here. So I'm trying to, should we just go through them and do a vote on each one? And then ideas, I don't know, like, because they're not, we didn't obviously didn't answer the same way. Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I'd throw the whole thing out if I was that. I just found it kind of frustrating that you had the either or situation. You can't have a regional plan without a good local plan. I mean, you need feeders to go to the buses. So we're put with it, you have to choose one or the other. And to me, it's not one or the other. It has to be a bit of both. So, I mean, I just found the questionnaire was not very well designed. I just, like I say, how would you make that choice? Oh, no, we want a regional one, but then we've got no place for the locals. I didn't have much faith in it, to tell the truth.
But that's where I think it is just, we've got to reply with something. And it is, as they take these answers, then it'll inform what that service is going to look like, as we heard in the presentation. Councillor St. Pierre.
I think consolidated information actually does provide them with feedback. Do we actually have to? We obviously don't all agree on some of these things. We got 3-3. I don't want to waste the time right now trying to dig into it. I think that the CRD staff, and they can get information, like they'll know when something is 6 people in one direction, 0 in the other. Okay, there's a lot of, like, they know that within this council, boom, everybody fell in that direction. Those are going to be clear answers. They were looking for clear answers. I think that the consolidated answers do give them some clear direction.
Okay, so not to be super difficult, but I guess we could say, okay, look, we all looked at this and in the end, here's what we have. We have 5, in some cases, just 5 respondents, and that's what we're going to send. Councillor McMahon?
I would just suggest that the ones that we agree on, we move forward with, and then we discuss now the ones that we disagree and triage. They had a simple request, you answer the survey. There's other advocacy opportunities because it is a layered issue. There's multiple pressing infrastructure pieces missing for us, whether it's local or big scope. But for now, for the purpose of completing what we promised we would, let's just do it now and do it right. And then if there's anything else that's left out, you have opportunities to advocate for those pieces.
Okay, so that still doesn't help. Well, it does. So I'm just trying to figure out how to do this. We have options. Number 1, we go through them. And I think we can just answer them. We don't have to, because we don't have to agree. Because now we could have 4 on one and 3 on the other. And we send that in. Is that what you mean?
If you have 4 people one way and 1 person the other way, send the full response from council as we want this.
I don't have that because only 4.5 people participated.
You've got quorum.
So send them what
So
we've got.
send exactly.
Okay, what I heard you say, and this is what I'm trying to clarify, is that you wanted to go through each one and re-vote on all of these.
Well, you said that there's one where it's a split. So that would be the only one that we discuss.
Okay.
In the terms where it is 4 versus 1, the answer is sent.
Okay, so I'm just going to do this quickly. And if anyone wants to chime in, we're going to send them the consolidated answers with what's here. So the first one where it says funding given 11, it's 3 on one side, 2 on the other. So 3 said to prioritize invest. Are we all on the same page? We're all looking at the same thing. Okay, A is 3 and 2 on the other. Connectivity is 3 on one, 2 on the other. Transit is 3 on one, 2 in the other. Here's we're all 6. Ooh, it's amazing. 6 replies. 5 on one. For traffic flow and congestion, we have 5 on one, 1 on the other. Here's a split one, and obviously this it's really hard to read.
Yeah.
The text is completely smudgy. It's transportation planning. Municipal transportation plans inform the regional transportation plan, or, the regional transportation plan takes precedence and directs municipal transportation plan. Ooh, that was split. So there's 7 of us. So that would be one with Councillor McMath. Well, then that's where now. So we need to do a vote on this one. So this one is municipal transportation plans inform the regional transportation plan, or the regional plan informs the municipal plan. So how many would agree that on the first one, municipal transportation plan informs the regional transportation plan? So someone's already changing their vote then. There's only 2 of us. So 2.
What? Okay, go back.
Okay, let's start. Like we're not all following the bouncing ball.
Okay, just tell me what the question.
So I'm looking at the consolidated results under F, transportation planning. Municipal transportation plans inform the regional transportation plan. So that means what we're doing on the ground informs the CRD plan, or the regional plan informs the local plan. So the CRD plan would inform our plan, and we're split 3 and 3 there.
Well, this is where I agree with Councillor Beddoes, because, either or. But let's do the vote.
So we're all know where we are.
Oh, there. It's not half, question now, that's why you're asking.
Yes. So it's either our planning work for municipal transportation to inform the regional plan, or the regional plan creates one, informs our local. So. Just make a decision. Counselor.
I just, since we are at the end of the road, so to speak, our municipal transportation plan is not going to inform the regional plan, but when municipalities between us and Victoria do things like put flowers in the middle of the road as View Royal.
But that's not.
That affects us and our ability to commute, etc.
But I would also argue that from a regional lens, upgrading Souk River Road would be deemed a priority because it leads to Pot Hills Park, which is a regional park, which draws in a lot of people. And therefore that's where that planning work would do. And whereas I would say that focusing on things like charters and church in our interior and so therefore our local government plan should inform the regional plan. Anyway, we've had this, so we need to make a decision. So who would like to say the first one? Municipal transportation plans inform the regional transportation plan. So we have 4 on that one. And then the other one would be the regional transportation plan takes precedence and directs municipal transportation plans. And 3. So 4 and 3 on that one. Behavior change, we have 2 on one side, 4 on the other. Can I just show you where we are, Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah.
Okay, just one sec, folks.
It's a bit of a dictatorship. That's the way I read it.
Yeah. So G is behavioral change. So we have 2 and 4. Is that okay? New mobility services, we have 1 and 5. So local responsibility, the other one is regional. 6, we have grants, individually pursue grants, 4 on the other. And then we move to the next section, which is understanding expectations. We have agree, neither agree, and disagree. So we have 4 on one side, 1 on the other. Oh gosh, 1, 2, 2. Okay. So this one here is B. A new governance structure should focus on projects that have the greatest impact on improving regional mobility, even if it means fewer local projects in your jurisdiction. Agree, okay.
I figured that this particular entity would be better at dealing with regional infrastructure. We wouldn't actually be dealing with regional infrastructure, so they should focus on stuff that would improve regional mobility with the idea that we're included into it, giving us better mobility through that regional plan. But there you go. We're not going to be able to provide a regional plan, so this is our opportunity to actually have them do it and for us to buy into it.
1, 2, and 2. Thoughts? Where I'm stuck here is on some cases. I don't want to overthink this, but we're jumping in that. I don't know, 4 answers are fine, 3 are fine, 2 are fine, 5 is fine. Maybe this just, we send that and it's like, this is what you get when we have one answer with diversity around opinion and we can't really answer the questions and I can't answer them. So I don't know what to do with that unless 2 people want to put something somewhere and then we'll know who didn't do the survey, but that's not fair either. I'm having too much fun with this. Okay. I don't know. Okay, so we're going to pull that one. All right. New governance structure. So you're going to have to answer this one. So you can agree, neither disagree or disagree. Neither agree or disagree or disagree. A new governance structure should focus on projects that have the greatest impact on improving regional mobility, even if it means fewer local projects in your jurisdiction. Who would agree with that statement? So we have 4 agreeing, How about a neither agree nor disagree? And disagree. Oh,
But why do they want us to stand in? They want us to stand in.
one answer for all of us.
Someone just screw off then and just. I mean, oh, no, I mean, come on, this is ridiculous. They're wasting your time here. We're never.
And well, we clearly don't agree.
Yeah.
All right, it's okay.
I think Mr. Carter would like to say something.
Mr. Carter, would you like to speak on this?
Or not, we can just finish this and go. Like, I
We'll
don't think
go.
it has that big of an impact at the end of the day, because there's 7 people here.
You don't have
There's
your
one
microphone.
As well, so.
I can't hear you when you're not speaking into the microphone.
Can you turn your mic off?
Oh, sure.
I was speaking into Al's. We are one seat at a bigger table, so I would not, just because you choose one over the other does not mean that they will not still do those things. They can be multifaceted. This is their attempt, albeit there's room for improvement. This is their attempt at trying to triage. So I don't think we need to overthink this. Like, let's finish the survey. If there's something that's neutral at this table, pull it and then submit. And then the rest of the work continues. It's not a piece that we need to spend an exorbitant amount of time on.
Sure. Okay. That was yours responding back to Councillor Beddoes. Or just in general. Okay, so next we have 4 and 1, and then we have 5 and 0. And then we get into the identifying opportunities section.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Can I just explain this section? It might be easier rather than, because I see it's kind of, our copier downstairs clearly needs new toner. Apologies. So for these next 2 questions, the majority, 5 members of council voted for option 4. And then for question 3, 5 members of council voted for option 2. So with the majority rules aspects, those would be the 2 preferred items that would be ticked to answer those questions. If that makes sense. Question 3, 5 members of council picked may result in a lower level of service for our local government. In response to question 3. So that would be kind of the majority for that question.
Oh, I see. Here it was the case where you select all that apply using the check boxes.
So, I mean, we could pick all, or I could just pick the number 5.
Right, or you could just check all the check boxes.
Or I could check all. I guess that would be council's decision.
There's answers on all of them, so I would check all, because you can check all the ones that apply. It's not asking us to rank them. It's not asking us to choose one. It says select all that apply using the check boxes. So we've done that on both number 3 and on number 4. Oh, number 5, we get into ranking. Well, that actually kind of worked out. 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess those are the answers. So
correct. Sorry for those next 2 questions that for questions 5 and 6 here, based on the majority of council's responses, that is how we would order those questions.
Okay.
If the majority rules.
that worked quite well on number 5 and on number 6. And then on number 7 for the attached comments, some of you did provide some answers here.
I just took those verbatim from the comments that were submitted and I don't see any concerns with including all of those.
No, we can include all of that along with that. And so, good. Okay. So here's what we'll do is, yes, Councillor Bateman.
I don't know how this will finish up. Final clause that would say something to the, well, would say, we're submitting this in anticipation of further opportunities for participation and discussion by Soup Council.
So, okay, so I'll just add that whenever a service is established, then there is a part where then there has to be buy-in. So when this happened in the past, it's a case where, okay, the directors make a decision at the board, it then goes out to local governments, and then all of them come into consent. And then that's where we'll see what comes out through that process. This is just to be like, okay, if we were going this time around, if the CRD was going to establish this, what would actually look like. So this has been sort of that first move that, and then more will come back to us. I think they said it next year sometime.
So I just changed the spelling of omission to double S.
So emission to W, oh, yes, emission.
I do that.
Okay. Okay, so the answer then is, or the answer, the resolution, the answer, the win for the day. That council submit answers collected on the CRD governance survey favored by the majority, except F, transportation planning, which will be municipal transportation plans, inform the regional transportation plan. And the omission of 2B, check all on 3 and 4 and include all responses to 7. Moved by Councillor McMath, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Okay. Not too bad. We are now into our bylaw section here. So we're looking at 891 fees and charges amendment bylaw. The recommendation here is that council give first, second, and third reading to the bylaw cited as fees and charges amendment bylaw number 891-752-08-2023. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. Any questions, comments? All right, see none, all in favor. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Next up is 10.2. This is the bylaw for permissive tax exemption. So, and there's also, this isn't loading here. There was 2 reasons. So number 1, I understand that some counselors had reflection on, oh, there's the recommendation on their thoughts, and also that there was something that was omitted. So we needed to rescind third reading because something was omitted. Can we clarify that?
Correct. Not omitted. It was included last year in error. The Hope Center, initially the very first year, they weren't sure what their final classification was going to be. So they applied for permissive exemption. Then the ownership changed to being owned by the province. So now the government the district actually receives a grant in lieu of taxes and approximately $20,000 from the Hope Center. So we don't need to exempt it under our bylaw this year.
Okay, thank you. So
if nothing changes, sorry, just to close my thought on that. If staff are just seeking this resolution in front of you in order to remove the Hope Center from the bylaw, if there's a different change council would like to do in regards to Macola, either way, this resolution would need to be read tonight.
So we need to do this regardless.
Correct.
Because of the change for the Hope Center.
Correct. And we'll do a new ad in the paper, which then October 30th would be the final drop dead date to adopt this bylaw. So as far as staff are concerned, removing Hope Center is a formatting correction that needed to be made as an oversight staff error. Macola would be up to council's discretion if this is something you want to reconsider.
Okay, thank you. So we'll start this in order here because we need to rescind third reading anyway. So that council rescind third reading of bylaw 892-792-03 permissive tax exemption amendment bylaw 2023. Let's move by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Okay. So on this one here, this will deal with this change. Now we're looking at the change to the schedule where then the Hope Center is out. So if that was the only one, then it would be then to delete Schedule A, replacing it with a new Schedule A. Okay, now did anyone want to make a change? Councillor Pearson. This is your opportunity to add anything in now.
Hold on a second. No, I think, okay, we're specifically talking about Macola now, but that,
Anything.
okay. So I got it wrong at the last meeting. I will be not supporting our not giving them the grant. I think because it didn't pass, right? It failed.
So what ended up happening is at the last meeting, majority of council did not grant
Exactly.
a tax exemption or did not put McCullough and the projects for Charters and Drennan into the permissive tax category.
Correct.
Or just Charters, pardon me.
Just charge.
Yeah.
So, and my logic is that I looked at the bigger picture on tax and I heard the arguments and I went home and I had second thoughts about it. Because it actually ends up hurting the most vulnerable people in our community. They're the ones who, given that the cost of living has gone up, and yeah, $58,000 is a lot of money to our bottom line, but $100 a month to some of those people that are in those housing facilities, that's the difference between them eating and making decisions. So I'm going to switch my vote. I'm not going to do that. I'm just not going to vote for the third reading, I think is what I'm going to do.
No, so in this case,
Oh,
it would be then, because we're doing a new Schedule A. So the new Schedule A that's in here now has the Hope Center removed.
Correct.
So it would be then to, it would be, if that's, okay, so that would be the motion then, would be that council, okay, I'm gonna go back to the meeting before for the, sorry about this, folks. I'm just gonna go back because the previous meeting didn't have an alternative available.
Through,
I'm just like that, it would. The question I'm asking or what I'm trying to answer is, does the majority of council want to give that project permissive tax exemption? At the last meeting, we said no. And now we have one councillor that has had a change of mind. We've received correspondence from our MLA. I think there's also been some commentary that the way the project is structured is that they cannot increase the rent either. So the concern you have wouldn't necessarily come to pass. However, it would potentially cut other services that are being delivered to our community because they need to come up for the funding somewhere. That was what was in the letter from Mr. Albers. So that's why, that's what triggered the response. So the rent is protected by design of the way the building receives funding in general. However, other supports and mechanisms and the like would not be granted. So
Can we not work through these bylaws right now? And then
that's what
go to a vote?
no, because we have to do it now on this particular one. The recommendation on here does not, oh, it does have that on there. It's been added now. Okay.
So if
I'm
we
getting
just go through
confused.
these pieces, then we will find a resolution.
Okay, so then it would be that council amend bylaw 892-792-003 permissive tax exemption amendment bylaw 2023 to delete Schedule A and replace it with a new Schedule A and to add 75 properties.
they're all individually owned.
Like each unit is individual.
Mhm.
Oh, I see. Okay, owned by McCullough Housing Society at 2170 Charters Road. So that's moved by Councillor Bateman.
I'm not sure what. Excuse me, your worship.
Yes,
What are we moving? One or two?
we've moved one, so we're on two.
Okay.
So Councillor, that's what I read out. Councillor Bateman is moved it. Councillor McMath is seconding it. Okay, so would you like to comment on it, Councillor Bateman?
No, I think.
Into the microphone when it's on?
No,
Okay,
nothing more to say.
Councillor McMath? Councillor Beddoes?
Thank you very much, your worship. I strongly disagree. The few months back, we had the RCMP come in and tell us that they looked at Drennan, Charters, and this other development next door. And they said that with those three developments, they would need to hire 1.2 Mounties. So a Mountie is $220,000. So we're looking to forgive $54,000. That's like a quarter of a Mountie. We still have to provide the services in this community. Now, I don't like to go on the backs of the poor or who's ever using it. And now I understand that it's not going to be onto them anyways. But if they can give, the province is put this building here, the province is putting these people in this building, and I doubt whether they're even all from Sioux. But then the province should come up with a tax incentive like they did for the Hope Center and pay for this. Because we were at $54,000 has to be put onto the tax rolls. So we're asking the people of Sooke to subsidize 75 properties for $100 a month. And I think the taxpayers would be upset about that. I'm upset about that. I mean, this is again, the province downloading on us. They're the ones that should be giving us some money. They put these things in our community, and we still have to hire the policeman. We still have to hire the fire department and all these other services that go with it. So it's not fair to the rest of the taxpayers. So I'm strongly opposed to this. I mean, come on, let's get the province to put the money in where it's needed. So no, I don't think we give them a tax exemption. And I don't care how many letters are written from our MLA or whatever it is. If you're going to do this to our community, then give us the money to support it. I don't mind supporting it, but it has to come some dollars. To put it on to the local taxpayers is just totally wrong. So, I mean, that's a lot of money, $54,000. That's a 0.5 percentage point on the taxes for next year. So I disagree with it strongly, and I'm really alarmed that we're even looking at it again, but I understand that it can come back and at the wish of the chair, but no.
I didn't pull it back. Just when I was saying, I did not bring this back.
why are
for
we dealing with it
We
again?
had to rescind third reading anyway. And there was a counselor, Counselor Pearson had indicated that he wanted to look at changing this. So it opens it up. That's why.
Okay, so if I'm unhappy, just a point of order, if I'm unhappy with a vote that went one way, then I can open up the next time?
There's a process where you could ask for reconsideration. In this case, I didn't bring it back for reconsideration because we didn't adopt a bylaw. So it's live, and then we have to rescind third reading anyway to deal with the Hope Center, which is a different here. So this is where I totally hear what you're saying.
Well,
Councillor
even the
Beckles.
Hope Center, the province has ponied up some money,
Yes.
not much, mind you, but it's better than nothing. So no, I resist. I can't. Well, I guess I am stressing it very strongly, and I guess you guys can vote however you want. But I don't believe that we should stick that to the taxpayers of Sooke, to police and fire department. This building. I mean, 75 properties. Oh, it's too much. Sorry, disagree.
Okay, Counselor Pearson and then Bateman.
Yep. And, you know, I heard all the rationale at the last meeting, and it was strong rationale, but I did have second thoughts when I got home, because I thought about and it was even before the phone call and the letter from our MLA. We're trying to build affordable housing. We have people living in trailers and bushes with single extension cords all over our community that also require police work, and we're not recognizing that the problem is way bigger than just our community. It's a epidemic in the province, and there's lots of other things that we could do. I apologize if I've caused stress to other councillors, because I think it's the first time that I've done this. Yeah, no, not that part. No, it's the first time that I've actually went home and I contacted the mayor the next day after I thought about it, and I asked for it to be reconsidered, but I also would vote against adopting it, a final adoption, which also would stall it in its place. So we had another option to go a different direction, and maybe the other councillors have had their opportunity to change their minds as well. So that's my explanation.
Counselor Bateman, then McMath.
Well, my mind is unchanged, and I said I wouldn't repeat what I said 2 weeks ago, but I will. So pending OCP bylaw number 800, Action 95, housing, enhance housing affordability, explore tax exemptions, development cost charge reductions, and other funding mechanisms to support housing affordability. We have the precedent of the Knox Vision Society, which gets a $52,000 annual tax exemption. And that's a BC housing project. Oh, and I could go on, as I often do, but come back to, I said 2 weeks ago, $50 million investment by BC Housing in this community. I'm not sure about that number, and I haven't had time to look it up, but I think that this is a gift to the community, and we need to set a stand. Oh, I concluded 2 weeks ago by referencing Saanich's permissive tax exemption guidelines, which they've just brought forward. And it's the key is that demonstrating this kind of support for long-serving or for housing providers attracts new nonprofit housing providers and projects. Whereas not doing so is a bit of a, like, you're not welcome.
Councillor McMath.
I would just play devil's advocate and point out that you've also just agreed to a $26 per household increase for parks. And so
That was not for parks, that was for housing, for the CRD.
excuse me,
Just clarity.
excuse me. And it's just like Councillor Bateman was saying, it is a small concession for a larger investment. And there will be development and there will be increased pressures on policing. That is inevitable. The other way you could look at this as well is for us to discuss permissive tax exemptions for emergency services providers. So one of the challenges with retention and attracting those members is looking at those pieces in terms of emergency services providers, whether it's doctors, nurses, firefighters, those pieces. So I think it's a small concession for a larger ticket item that Souk desperately needs. And we've just had another piece that's fallen through. And I think that by going forward with this amendment, it just shows Souk is willing to work with these larger corporations.
Councillor St. Pierre.
I appreciate what everyone has said. I actually agree with everyone. I also had second thoughts in the car. Our mayor can attest. Having said that, I can see that right now our council is probably going to vote in favor of an amendment that will provide this tax exemption, and I'm okay with that. Having said that, I'm going to vote against it because I think the province needs a message loud and clear that we do not have the funding streams and that our taxpayers cannot afford all the affordable housing that we actually need. This is not a sustainable way to actually bankroll affordable housing. We can't just keep on doing that because the more people we bring in, the more services we need. We just finished last session talking to people about, okay, you're going to want to bring more people with one tiny subdivision. You got to pay something, right? Everybody should have to pay their share. This is 75 and everybody needs services. I agree we need affordable housing. I agree we need to step up, but I think that it's critical that we send messages that we need alternative revenue streams and we need help, because expecting, honestly, as things get more difficult, inflation increases and everything keeps going the way it's going, there's going to be a smaller and smaller number of group of people paying for more and more of what everyone needs. So we need some solutions. I will vote against, but it's not because I'm really wanting it to not go forward. I really think that we need to be looking at the revenue. This is not sustainable.
Okay, Councillor Lajeunesse.
Yeah, I agree 100% with what Councillor St. Pierre said. It's yeah, it's a tough one, but I'm not going to change my vote for the reasons that I mentioned at the last meeting.
No, and that's fine. I will remain where I voted before. So in this case, it would be in favor of the resolution that has been put forward. And that is to put the properties for Macola into that particular category. As we had done with the Hope Center, as we did with Knox Vision and with other, I think Air Manor maybe would be another one. I totally agree though with what you're saying in terms of there will be more calls for service because anywhere where there's density, there is going to be those services. The concern I have is the cut to services to people that need to access them. We already have challenges with folks accessing services like that. We're already, so in terms of a provincial download, I hear you. We are funding prenatal care and the food bank. And emergency counseling and all of those things that the provincial government is failing to fund and provide. However, it's a critical time for people. I did indicate that those most vulnerable here would not necessarily be impacted by a rent hike, but this particular building is meant to have those at the most vulnerable all the way up to market. So what it would mean would be that those paying market rent would likely be the ones that are going to be hit with higher rent to make up the difference, or the service delivery that would be cut. As far as I worked with Macola in the Hope Center in the past, before the scope and all that changed, they, from what I understand, were a good property manager. And we had done some reach to see what other projects they might be interested in doing. The alternative is for us to acquire land and to do this all on our own. And right now we don't have the capacity to do any of that. We're continuing to raise funds through developer contributions that majority tend to push back and don't want to pay. And then we have three levers. We get grants and funding from federal and provincial government, property taxes, or through fees and charges. And nobody likes to give us any of those things. Nobody likes to pay more in fees and charges. No one wants to pay more in taxes, and the government doesn't want to fund any of our grant requests. So then we're stuck with all of these things we have to do. In the meantime, as Councillor Pearson indicated, we do have people living in very rough circumstances. A member of the public raised developer-owned parcels right now where people are living in very vulnerable situations. I got queried by the mayor on homelessness and our challenges there. And yes, we are funding more helping hands, more boots on the ground by way of fire, police, and bylaw. But all we have is enforcement in our toolkit right now. And I'm frustrated by it because I agree with you. The province is completely downloading this on us, as they have been for over a decade that I've been sitting here. And we've been picking up the pieces. It's just getting very heavy because the work is complicated and the cost gets more expensive every time. So I totally hear what you're saying. However, I want to see people living in houses. I'm not comfortable with people living rough unless it's by choice, as opposed to being pushed out to, or living in rough circumstances with fire hazard and all the like. So we need to put safety around people. And as you know, I'll continue to advocate, even though I don't seem to have success with it very much. But I'll just leave it at that and call the question. So all those in favor? And opposed is Councillor Beddoes, Lajeunesse, and St. Pierre. So it carries on a 4-3. So then we'll move to the next piece here. So that council give third reading to bylaw 792 permissive tax exemption amendment bylaw 2023 as amended. And that council direct staff to provide notice of the proposed permissive tax exemption in accordance with section 227 and 94 of the community charter. So moved by Councillor McMath, seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. The other piece that will come up, just speaking about the permissive tax exemption category in general, is some of the decisions they're locked in and then they come forward for renewal. So this is where other communities are starting to look at that, saying, okay, we've been granting this particular entity tax exemption, but what is the benefit to the public? Is there one? There should be. That's why you have a tax exemption. If there isn't, then maybe we need to examine it in some ways. So in some cases, this has led to conversations around private entities or community organizations that hold land for parks that is gated and the public can access. It could be other places of worship, places, those things. And that conversation is happening across the province and Canada-wide. But for now, that's not in front of us, but it's something that might come our way in the future. Okay. Okay, so I'll call the question on that. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries unanimously because a non-vote is a vote in favor. And so this will be advertised. It will come back for adoption at the next regular council meeting. Thank you, everyone. I know that's a tough call. Okay, so next up is 10.3. So this is bylaw number 887-600-96 zoning amendment bylaw 2023-2027 Maple Avenue South. So this here is to adopt the bylaw cited as zoning amendment bylaw number 887-600-96 2023. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, new business. That was the amended there. So we move to no new business. Correspondence requiring action. So 12.1 for a better tomorrow, the zero carbon step code was pulled by Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, so.
I pulled that because we're in the process of a educational curve, learning curve here. This next opportunity would be to see. There we go. The motion is that the district invite representatives from BC Hydro, Fortis BC, and the South Island Climate Action Team to address the committee of the whole at a TBD future date, which could be in the near term, the longer term, whatever works.
So that is
Something
something.
to keep this conversation going.
Did you want them all here at the same time?
Yeah, I think, why not? Let's have a three-ring circus.
Okay,
Count.
so that's moved. Seconded for discussion, Ms. Gray.
Just through your worship, logistically, trying to get 4 organizations to one meeting might be a challenge.
That's pretty early.
And the timing, Hydro Fortis, South Island Climate Action Committee. If as long as it doesn't have to all be at the same, it'll make staff a lot easier for staff to try and find a date to bring these organizations forward. Just trying to coordinate 3 organization schedules, I'm gonna assume is gonna be a challenge. Once we figure out who to even reach out to there.
Well, note that City of Nanaimo brought together these 3 groups plus about 20 others for their particular conversation. I think you give it a go.
I think it's just what I'm hearing staff say, but not actually say, is just cognizant of capacity.
Right.
And our ability to meet this. So if it's a case where to have it at a future date, that's fine. But I think it's just be mindful, like part of this is what are we hoping to accomplish with this? And it's great that Nanaimo did that. Lot of capacity, way more people, biggest local government on the island. Who's our audience? What are we doing with this? So I'm not sure. I like the idea. I'm not certain I'll support it because I do want to also go through our strategic planning and then determine how we want to use committee of the wholes and what sort of conversations we want to go forward with. And I don't want anyone to be disappointed. So I'm not going to vote in favor, not because I don't like the idea, but because I'm just concerned that one is dictating this will happen, it's determining our priorities. I want to set those and get them operating and then come out and say, okay, what other conversations do we need to have? And what is the best setting to have them? We have committee of the whole at night, no one comes. We do it during the day, a few people attend. And then a larger audience is still complaining on Facebook that we're not doing anything. So we're not, if we're here to inform the public, we try with the Builders Association, they hate step code. So I just like, what are we trying to accomplish here? I don't know. Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I sort of asked the same question. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought the whole idea to bring these people in is to discuss the options of banning gas to all new developments for this gas. Is that the intent, to get the information? Or
No,
is it just to?
It's the.
I'm asking a question, so I mean.
I don't have an answer.
Well, I'm
I
asking
could
Councillor
answer, but
Bateman because
Tony
he
has,
was-
okay.
Can I
well,
do that?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
following
I-
up on the CRD presentation.
Yeah,
of-
yeah, I understand.
Of however long ago that was that 2 weeks?
Yeah,
It was 4 weeks. No, it was 2 weeks.
it doesn't matter.
It
Go
doesn't
ahead.
matter. So, they identified that we as a council, as a municipality, can follow the provincial timetable or we can move forward with one of 4 levels of the zero carbon step code.
Okay.
My feeling is that this is an important matter, given the wave of new development that's coming to Souk. And also our latest GHG emissions report, which shows a 22% increase over the 2008 baseline year. So having spoken with Fortis at UBCM, they're really keen to be in the room as these conversations unfold. They feel they've been shut out of opportunities in Victoria, Saanich, and maybe View Royal as well. BC Hydro, of course, I mean, we've heard some of the questions. Does it have capacity to meet our?
Yeah, no,
So
okay.
these are really fascinating to
I guess
me
you answered
and
my
important
question.
issues.
It was, I didn't know if it was spearheaded just for this possibly not allowing gas into new neighborhoods, but it's not. You're looking at the overall picture to get it. Okay, I'm okay with that. And when we talked about the CRD zero code, I just found it really amazing that they showed Invermere and where they allow wood stoves, and yet they still get to that zero. So I'd be interested to see how that works. But I don't have a problem with this, but I agree that we would get to the strategic plan first and then bring people in. We've got some pressing things happening. So I don't disagree with you. I would like to hear from BC Hydro. I'd like to hear from Fortis, the other ones I hear from all the time, but I have questions for them. So in the future, I'm okay with it.
Councillor St. Pierre.
Provide a slightly different answer. The zero carbon step code is about mandating the availability of zero carbon heating systems.
Okay, I'm going to keep you on the motion
Please,
here.
Please. And I will stay on the, I would like to disagree with the motion as well. But anyway, it's not about banning, because you can have secondary gas systems. So anyway, I would suggest that I would like to see the correspondence that we've been receiving on the zero carbon step code. I'd like to see the presentation that was provided by the CRD, and then I would like a chance to just discuss this in council with my peers and look at the actual notice of motions that were offered in Victoria and so on and so forth, and decide if we want to move forward. I think we should find out, I mean, how much are we actually moving things ahead forward? If this is going forward in 2024 anyway, and it's happening in 6 months, how much time do we want to spend on this? I don't know, but I'd love to know, when this might actually be going forward. So this would be more information. And if we have capacity for it, sounds okay, but I think we actually have a fair amount of information just from the CRD presentation. Not sure.
Which is available online for whenever you want to receive it. Okay,
All my notes, I'm not gonna need it.
so I will, if you could turn off your microphone, Councillor Beddoes, I'll
sorry.
call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Beddoes and I are opposed. That carries on a 5-2. And so it gets logged. It's just asked that you give staff space to catch up, because we're throwing a lot of fuel into the engine here. Next up is 12.2.
Shelve this material until, because I know we need to return in camera.
So these other pieces here, they can go, we can move, it just depends.
This could be pretty quick.
Could it?
Good.
Okay. Human Health Risk Report from Trans Mountain EA. Can't read that. O condition.
So,
Oh, I see. Here we go. EAO condition 38.
so Machosen has been carefully analyzing these Trans Mountain reports that have been coming in, as of next year, that the pipeline will be complete and tanker traffic will rise from about 40. Wait a sec, what are the numbers here? 60 per year up to 400 per year. So it's going to be a lot of traffic out in the Juan de Fuca. And Machosen has some concerns about that. Yeah, Machosen has concerns, and we here in Souk have had concerns. You go back to 2011, Mayor Milnes, one of his first actions was to write Ottawa and talk about his concerns and Souk's concerns about increased tanker traffic. To quote him, there have been a number of near misses recorded in recent years, so I believe it is inevitable that a major collision will occur in the future. Mike Hicks said something similar. Increased crude oil tanker traffic will only increase the odds of an environmental catastrophe. We then went ahead with this non-binding plebiscite in October 2014, where 70% of Sioux voters were in favor of the district joining other municipalities and renewing and restating its opposition to the expansion of oil tanker traffic. So here we are 9 years later, it's happening. What are we going to do about it? Well, Machosen has suggested these two items, and I think we should write a simple letter in support.
Yep, I'm okay with this. Okay, it would be, and we'll vote on it. So the motion here would be then that Mayor Tate write the Honorable George Heyman in support of the District of Machosen's recommendations per its letter of July 18th, 2023, namely, 1, the province seek the agreement of Transport Canada such that tankers are not permitted to enter nearby oceans when spill response teams are not permitted to respond due to adverse sea conditions. And 2, the province should assist local governments to stockpile personal protection equipment and spill response equipment and develop land-based shoreline and evacuation response plans. So that's the motion. And that's Councillor Bateman is moving that. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. So Councillor Bateman has spoken to it. Councillor St. Pierre, do you have anything to add?
This doesn't actually cut off oil, doesn't really stop tankers. It basically prevents, or hopefully prevents tankers from traveling when there's no opportunity to actually mitigate disasters, which I think is pretty reasonable. And it basically tries to avoid some downloading on the community by making sure that we actually have help with necessary equipment in case of a disaster. So I don't see any reason not to support this.
Others, Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I guess it's not my night tonight. I disagree. I mean, we fought this battle 5 years ago or more. And I agreed with the battle 5 years ago, as I do today. I don't like the ideas of those tankers coming up and down, but the pipeline's almost done. It's not going to change things. We are going to get those 400 tankers a year. The feds have set up spill response, which they promised they would do. I'm not exactly ecstatic with that either, because when a tanker splits open, you're not going to have enough boats to mop it up. But it is a fact, and I figure to what end? I mean, if we write a letter, I like to think that it might have some influence. I have a feeling it'll have absolutely no influence. I think the government has made their decision. They have put all the wheels in motion. They have consulted with the First Nations, disagree with us all or everybody. They consulted with us. We've written letters in the past. And so I just don't see what's the point of it. I just don't see when you write a letter and we use our staff's times and everything to send this letter, does it really add much weight to a decision that's already been made? So I can't support it. I mean, I sympathize. I wish we had stopped it 5 years ago, but we didn't. And now we have to live with it. So no, I can't support it.
Councillor Lajeunesse?
Yeah, I'm not sure that not allowing the tankers to travel when there are adverse sea conditions, that means that they're going to be having to anchor in adverse sea conditions, which could create more hazards than if they're able to just go on their way. If they're sitting on the hook in a storm, that creates additional hazards as well.
Councillor McMath?
We've spent more time discussing this than it would take to write the letter. I don't think there's any harm in writing a letter. And if they don't listen, they don't listen. So you need to call the question.
Yep, I agree with Councillor McMath. I'm calling the question. I'll just say in the end, if there is a spill, at least I did something at the time. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Lajeunesse and Councillor Beddoes is opposed. That carries. Next item, please. Proposing.
This is a pretty simple one.
Is it?
It's simple only in that we're all going to have meetings one-on-one with Staff Sergeant Wilcox in the coming couple of weeks. So mine is this coming Thursday. I thought I could raise this with him. I can either report back And or we could raise the matter with him when he makes his next quarterly report. But I think it would be easy just to anecdotally have a conversation with him and talk about police community engagement. There are 42 community police offices in BC. And as I noted in my email to you all today, Acting Staff Sergeant Shaw noted during budget time that the 5th of the RCMP officers we are to hire over the next 3 years will be dedicated to community policing. So I suspect that will be the response from Mr. Wilcox, is that we have to get a number of key issues together, and then community policing will be our priority in 2026.
We'll see.
We'll see.
I think for now, it's just, you're more than welcome to do that. And for now, we'll receive and file the correspondence. So motion to receive and file by Councillor McMath, seconded by Councillor Pearson. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. No one was looking at me. I usually go for who gives me eye contact, but you did, there was a movement. 12.4 is the Sauk River Bridge incident.
So here's the latest in a series of incidents on Sauk River Bridge. No one has been killed to date, to my knowledge. But this is a letter we received from Dr. Mortensen. A friend of his came with a group of cyclists from Gibson's. There was a mishap on that bridge crossing as they were heading into Sauk. And one of the riders crashed onto the sidewalk. He could easily have slipped into traffic. So I know I'm a cyclist myself. I'm also nervous crossing that bridge. There's not a lot of bicycle traffic in Sauk. My friend Ross was today doing the CRD bike count, and he stations himself outside the Teriyaki House. They capture AM and PM bike riding traffic, and there's maybe 10 or 12 bike riders at most every year. And you go back to Joe Average Cyclist, who is a well-known Lower Mainland cyclist expert. He wrote a blog back in 2010. He says, District of Sauk should put up a sign at the outskirts of their village warning cyclists that they are not welcome and risk death if they enter Sauk. And that was based on his experience crossing that bridge. So I think we need to be advocating with Moti. This is just one of a growing file of issues, right? The second bridge crossing, the Idlemore intersection, the sidewalk from Ed McGregor to Whiffen Spit. So I think we just received this information. At the same time, we need to ensure that we have a meeting with Moti in
this case, our staff meet with Moti's staff. We meet with the other elected bodies. So what we could do is direct staff to forward this correspondence to our current MLA for his review and follow-up.
Very quickly, if I could.
Yes.
When the people are riding their bikes, are they riding it on the sidewalk or are they riding it on the road?
Both.
Well, they shouldn't be on the sidewalk.
They're on both.
They're on both.
So the problem is you're not supposed to be on the sidewalk.
Yeah,
You're supposed to be
I
on the
understand.
road, but there's no space on the bridge.
Dangerous, no doubt.
on the road crossing river and crossing the bridge. And they took those out because the white lines, it was too narrow. So it was against code. So
the rule, as I understand it, is that if there's not enough room, then you have to take the lane. And that's where you will be in the middle taking the lane. And I've seen experienced cyclists do that on Phillips Road, Sauk River Road, the bridge itself, not on the sidewalk, but to take the lane. But you have to be, I can't do that. You have to be a fearless cyclist when traffic's coming behind you. But in this case, let's send it to our MLA for his response. It's his
Can I write
jurisdiction.
him and add a few?
Well, the
early
letters
views?
come from me. If you would like to
I
draft
will
something, you
send
can send it forward to me and we can send it off that way. Okay? Okay, all that's been moved and seconded. So all those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. And the last one, 12.5, is the Galloping Goose Cultural Corridor Project.
So finally, this followed Mr. Hockenhull's presentation to us and on September 11th. And I see he got into the Suit News Mirror with his idea this last week. It's a big idea. And of course, the Galloping Goose is the responsibility of the CRD. So I'm not quite clear. I would defer to our CRD Parks Committee representative.
Well, I'm actually your director and I happen to sit on parks at this.
I'm well
particular
aware
time.
of that.
Okay.
But at this hour, perhaps I'm not quite as cogent as I could be.
That's fine. Okay.
Okay.
So I did also, speak with the reporter from the Suit News Mirror about this. The Galloping Gooses, as you all know, CRD jurisdiction. I raised this item in 2 recent CRD meetings. So whether that was regional parks or the board or environment or First Nations, I don't recall where. It's a great idea. It's just reminder that the CRD is doing work with 20 different nations. So whose territory? Can anyone here answer that? I could not answer that. That would you start signing? Until those pieces are known, there's other engagement work that is important to the nations that is being done right now with capacity delivered on that. So what you could write back to Mr. Hockenhull to do is he could present as a delegation to regional parks there and to share his idea there. And see, but I've raised it twice. It's there's other work that's being done already with work around kiosks and mapping and the like, where items are known and where the nations are interested in advancing that. In some cases, they are not. And I think the last thing any nation right now needs is us telling them what to do on their territory. I think they've had enough of that. So
Okay, so is this for me to write him back and say, recommendation is to book a delegation with the CRD Parks Committee to
you
present your
could
idea?
reach out to, I mean, it's the case where I get asked sometimes, will you even reply to my email? Like I already have 2,500 emails I haven't read for Wednesday's meeting. And will I realistically reply to those? No, because it's impossible. They keep coming in. So I'm behind on email. If you would like to reply to him to close the loop and direct him to the CRD, that would be of great help.
Okay,
At one point, we had agreed that the deputy mayor would reply to emails and correspondence. That isn't happening. And now I'm not replying to any of them because I'm overwhelmed by all of them. So if someone can reply on, I'm pointing it to you because you pulled it. So it would make sense for you to close the loop there. Okay. So I think there's no action there except to receive and file the correspondence. Moved by Councillor McMath, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. So council, I believe that brings us to the end, except council verbal reports. Can we leave that for this particular meeting? Thank you. So in this case, I would like for council to adjourn the open portion of today's meeting and reconvene the recessed closed in camera meeting. Moved by Councillor McMath, seconded by Councillor Pearson. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. So to those of you viewing online, thank you.